Hey everyone, welcome back. GameFace is back. It's episode 317 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield. Alongside me today is Matt Kyle to talk about the latest and the greatest in video games.
Wow.
Wow.
The latest.
Yeah, the latest, definitely. Not the greatest, so to speak, with today's episode. We'll see how it goes. How was your 2-week layoff?
All right.
Yeah?
Went some places, got some sun.
How'd you get sun?
I went to an air show.
That's a rare occurrence for our folk.
Yeah. And
Your face does look a little red.
A little bit. And film festivals.
Yeah. You've really been making the rounds. There's been all kinds of them.
Yeah, we've been in a lot of them. We're going to Philly in a couple weeks.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm not, but
I was going to say I could give you some tips on where to go and what to see.
Brian's going.
Oh, okay.
The director's going. We're nominated for a bunch of stuff there.
That's awesome.
We got a best actor, best drama, best choreography, best editing, best cinematography, and best sound design.
Wow.
Across the two movies. So,
good luck.
So hopefully Flat Earther can start winning some stuff and start catching up to the dance movie.
Yeah. Wait, so the dance movie has one more at this point?
Dance movie's won, I think, 2 or 3 things. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mostly cinematography and lighting stuff.
Yeah, I can see that.
And the new one, and the other one got a later start because we didn't finish it until May, so it missed a few things. Mm-hmm. But it's catching up. It's catching up. The one this weekend was the NoHo Cinefest, and that was at this place called Look Cinema in Glendale. Mm-hmm. For some reason, NoHo Cinefest was in Glendale.
Yeah,
and
it's a little weird.
But I'd never been there before. It's like one of those like Alamo Drafthouse style, like you can order food from the seat sort of things. And I don't hold with that. I don't like the.
Oh, you don't like that?
No, I don't eat while I watch a movie. I'm there to watch a movie.
You don't even eat like a snack?
No.
Nothing?
No.
Wow, interesting.
Before, like, if I haven't eaten dinner or something, I'll get something and eat it before the movie starts, but I will not eat during the movie. That
wow, not like Milk Duds or any M&Ms, nothing?
No.
Interesting. Okay.
And the last thing I need are people turning their phones on and scanning shit and ordering things and stuff.
That is a distraction.
The one thing I did like is the cup holders have a hot mode and a cold mode.
Oh,
I thought it was cool.
That is cool. It's crazy how bougie theaters are getting now.
And they have like trays. I sat down, I'm like, are we taking a test? What's going on? But it was the best presentation of the movies I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
Like, even in terms of like QA, and we've like I've never seen Flat Earther look that good.
Wow, that's awesome. Bless you.
Sorry.
Bless you.
But yeah, it was so that was good. It was, especially because the weekend before was Catalina. Yeah. And Catalina's gorgeous. What a beautiful place. But that film festival's presentation was like high school AV club stuff. Yeah. It was a projector attached to a MacBook with a folding screen in the city council meeting room in the city hall. And it's doubly weird because there's a gorgeous single-screen Art Deco theater in the casino building on Catalina. And they did show the big premiere at the end of the festival, and the awards were there and everything. But almost everything else was shown in this weird little, like it was like a town hall meeting. Yeah. It was bizarre. And the door to come in was literally the back of the room. So every time anyone came in, light just flooded the whole, you couldn't see anything.
All over the screen.
And when we first came in, they were playing this German horror movie. And I'm like, this is a very weirdly paced film? And Brian's like, they're running it at 90% speed. It's moving too slow. That's why they're late, is because the movie was taking too long. And they did that with a couple of, one of the first short in our blocks. They replayed. It was bizarre.
Wow.
Bizarre. It was one of the weirdest things. I've been to
It's like amateur hour.
Yeah, which is weird because it's like a very highly respected festival, and it's been going for 12 years, and everybody was talking. It's like, oh my God, you got into Catalina. Catalina's amazing. You definitely got to go to Catalina. I'm like, okay. I mean, and Catalina was, like, the rest of it was incredible, but like, it hurt to watch. I mean, our movie was in the middle of the block. It looked fine, except everybody looked a little too orange. But like, it was just not what I was expecting.
Yeah, you're probably gonna get into some of those.
Yeah, there's gonna be a few of those here and there. But like, I don't know. Considering how much effort and time and money it takes to get to Catalina, I just was expecting.
Yeah, I get it totally. Well, that's great. That's some good news. Hopefully, some of your both of your films end up winning some stuff here and there.
Yeah, I'd like to see some of that.
Yeah, I need to apologize because the last time we did GameFace, I should have told you guys, and I should have remembered that I had a medical procedure coming up the next week. So some of you guys may be sitting there right now saying, what the hell happened last week? And if you don't follow us on Twitter, which you should, at Sifted Games, you wouldn't know what happened. You probably just showed up for GameFace last week, and we're like, what's going on? Where's the show? I had forgotten that I had a medical procedure, and we're all adults here, so I'll just share what my medical procedure was. I had my first ever colonoscopy last week, and if you've never done it before, and most of you probably haven't because you're not at Matt and I's age, you have a day of prep, which is a complete nightmare, and then the next day you actually go in for the procedure. So my procedure was on Wednesday. I had to spend the Tuesday prepping for the colonoscopy on Wednesday. Just for people who may be asking how it went, it did not go great. They did find something during my colonoscopy, and I'm waiting for the results to come back right now. It's been torture, waiting for the results to come back. I should have them like any day now, but just the fact that they found something and they had to send it in for testing is not good. So keep your fingers crossed for me. That would be awesome. I'm a little scared right now. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm prepared for almost anything. So just so you guys know why we didn't do the show last week and why we weren't here, I had to take care of things that you have to do when you get to my age. I'm also high risk because my grandfather had died of colon cancer. So anyway, that's where I was. I hope you guys can understand why we weren't here last week. But again, I highly recommend that you follow us on Twitter at Sifted Games. You'll always know what's going on. That's where we communicate everything. And it's particularly if you're not someone who frequents our site at sifted.net, then I highly recommend that you follow us on Twitter at Sifted Games to know what's going on at all times. But anyway, I do apologize. I'm sorry, but just some things you gotta have to do as an adult, and it was the only time I could schedule it and get it in. So we'll see how things go. I'm not all that positive about it. Again, my grandfather died of colon cancer at a very young age. So now in hindsight, I wish I had gone earlier than I did, but it is what it is. So anyway, some other bad news too, Matt, like Rob Smith, an old colleague of Matt and I's, passed away last week. He was a games journalist who came up through the ranks with Matt and I. We've known him for...
Editor-in-chief at Machinima, PC Gamer, OXM, tons, it did tons and tons of magazines.
Yeah, and Matt and I have known him for like 20 years, and he passed away, and nobody knows what happened yet. So... Matt, we're just kind of getting at the age where this stuff just happens to people that we know. Unfortunately, that's just when you get to a certain point in life, people just start passing away for various reasons.
I always used to wonder when I was growing up, we go visit my grandma, and like all my grandma and her friends and my mom and everybody that were there would talk about around the kids we would play with whatever, and like the adults would all sit around the table and talk about medical things and who was sick and who was dead. And I'm just like, why is that? And now I'm like, oh, because that's what
old people talk about. That's what happens in your life. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that those results come back, and there's no I don't have cancer. So we'll see how it goes, and I'll obviously let you guys know when I have more information. I'm not going to leave you guys hanging out there wondering what's going on. Hopefully I get this information here in the next day or two, and if I do, I'll be sure to leave it in the comments section of the archive, both on Sifted and on our Patreon, so you guys know what's going on. So lots of well wishes I see in the chat. In fact, let's bring up the chat real quick before we get going here. There's a bunch of Twitch Prime because it is the beginning of the month, so I want to make sure I get all this in to thank all you guys. Where does it start? Here we go. Commander Fett, David 5807, Raphael Michael, Nexus 6 Batty, Glottis 021, Fire Native, The Big Smoke 82, Slagathor, TV Hardy, Karma Lounge. Anybody else who got in here? Okay, that's it. And not Cirque. He got in as soon as I started reading, got in there. Thank you guys for Twitch Prime. It really makes a big difference for us. I really appreciate the people who take the time to do it. Big Smoke says, I hope everything is well. Try to stay positive. I am. I'm trying. The mystery is driving me crazy. I wish I knew so that I can, if it is bad news, we can get going in the right direction to start, trying to get it rectified. I think my fear is sitting here for another week. And if it is, in fact, cancer, like letting it get worse. So, and then we have our trip coming up to Greece in like 2 weeks, a week and a half. So it is what it is. Danny Enduras, no colon anymore. Don't mean to brag. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I agree with you that staying positive is a big deal. And I'm going to do that. And I'll tell you what, Marcus Beer has laid down that template for me. I've watched him go through his struggles, and you would not know that he's going through his struggles. So he has set an excellent example for me going forward, if it is indeed the case that I'm also walking down that same road. Send tight fingers crossed. Thank you. Best wishes from Fresh from the Deli. Thank you. Mitchell is alive. Poop it out, Shane. Unfortunately, that will not fix things. That would be great if it were that simple, but it really is not. So I do appreciate the humor, though. It's keep the humor coming, because I think that's important to stay positive and keeps laughing and smiling. Henry Pumpkins, thank you for Twitch Prime. That's awesome. Minority Games, thank you for 100 bits. That's incredible. Okay, before we get headed into the show proper, a couple things to talk about that we didn't feel like there was that were worthy of a full topic on GameFace. I guess I'll put it that way. First up, they're remastering Horizon Zero Dawn, Matt.
Well, maybe.
Oh, wait, it's a maybe?
Yeah, I didn't hear anything concrete on that.
I thought that was a...
That was a rumor as far as
Oh.
And there are some people that think that it might be somebody misinterpreting them working on a PS5 update for it.
Oh.
If they are doing a remaster of that is bizarre.
5 years after it came out.
It doesn't really need it.
No, it still looks great.
It's got some texture streaming issues on PS5, but like it's fine.
Yeah.
Like I played through half of it again on PS5. It's fine. It's like they don't need to do
if this is true, that's absurd.
It's very silly.
It's like way worse than The Last of Us Part 1.
Because at least The Last of Us Part 1 was like a big jump. Like you could see
it made a difference.
Presentationally, it's a big deal. It's in terms of how it hits in this, and how it hits the same way that like 2 hits in terms of the performances and stuff. Whereas Horizon Zero Dawn, like I don't know, the only thing I could think is maybe you hit a point where like we're working on PS5 patch, I've kind of wondered why that hasn't shown up. And maybe you hit a point where, because there was texture streaming issues on it, you've got the facial expression sort of lip sync problem that it's always had. Maybe they hit a point where like, we can't remaster this, but we could remake some of it and redo. If we redo that, we'd have to make it kind of a new SKU to justify the cost. Maybe that's what happened. I wouldn't mind a version of Horizon Zero Dawn that has the same facial expressiveness of Forbidden West, because that was one of their biggest jumps.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest improvement.
Yeah, and it is something you definitely notice playing it again, is like, oh my god, it's like everybody had Botox before this started or something. Nobody's face can move. That's the only thing I could think that would be basically like a PS5 patch that like spun out of control. You know?
Yeah. Because The Last of Us, feasibly, there is a generation of players who never played it. It's old enough that next generation of people have moved into their teens and adulthood who didn't play it. So
and even people older than that who just discovered, because 2 sold better. So more people played 2 than 1 in the end. So, if that's what you want to... In this way, when they go back to play it again on their PS5, you get $70 out of them instead of 20.
Yeah. I think that's still a stretch, though, for The Last of Us Part 1. It's a big-time stretch for Horizon Zero Dawn. Like,
it kind of depends. Like, if you want to do a remaster with fixed faces and character models and all that stuff, like, I love that game. I might be up for an upgrade for that.
It's our game of the year.
Yeah, especially I'd be up for that at like $30.
Right.
But I feel like it's going to be 70.
Probably. That's the precedent.
If that's what's happening.
Yeah.
You sell it as its own PS5 specific SKU, apparently it's going to be $70, right?
Yeah.
But we'll see what it turns out to be. If they confirm that that's happening, I didn't see it. But I did see the original report that like somebody was told that this was happening, maybe, or whatever.
Yeah, it seemed like it was coming from pretty reliable sources. Next, the never-ending saga of Ubisoft's Skull and Bones. So we thought it was canceled. Ubisoft needed a game for 2022, so it dusts it off and says, oh, this is coming now, 4th quarter of 2022. We all get back on board with it. We talk about it at least once here on GameFace. And now they've delayed it again.
They even gave it a date.
Yeah, now they've delayed it again out of 2022 into 2023.
Where it's going to die.
Where it's going to be mercilessly pummeled.
Yeah.
The whole purpose...
At least it had a shot, like, in the kind of the desert of the winter and fall here. Like, like, the holiday season here doesn't have a lot of competition for something like that. But in next spring, next January, February, March, you're like, what do you...
You might as well delay it to,
just push it to next summer or something.
Way later.
Make it like a nice June pirate game.
Right, yeah.
Like that'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Add some tropical areas to the game.
And isn't the other Assassin's Creed, Mirage supposed to be in there, or something's supposed to be in there.
I think Mirage is in the 4th quarter.
Is it?
Yeah.
I thought something was supposed to be early in the year.
That would be okay. Like, Ubisoft needs to release games. Like, it's okay if it releases 2 1/4. Like, it kind of needs to release 2 1/4 for the foreseeable future. But anyway, the never-ending saga of Skull and Bones goes on. Next, it was revealed this week, or basically announced by PlayStation, that there will be no PlayStation games on PC for at least 12 months. Is that good enough, Matt, if you're a PlayStation owner? Are you okay with that?
Like, as in, like, they'll wait a year to put something from that?
What we thought was 18 months now is basically, it sounds as if it's been lowered to 12 months.
Well, at least. I mean, it could still be 18 months.
It could be, yeah.
Probably depends how long it takes to make it. Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm not
you think
gonna
a year's enough?
I'm not going to wait a year to play God of War Ragnarok. Are you out of your mind?
Yeah, I mean, we won't. But would it affect the bigger audience?
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
There's no bigger audience for PC there in that way.
Yeah.
Like those things, the rule of thumb for my friends in game dev is still the PC version is going to sell a third of each console. Like, it's just not.
There are a lot of PC players who will buy one console per generation to get the exclusives for that platform. You don't see this turning those people off, and they're like, you know what, I don't need a PS5 now.
I wouldn't wait for any of that.
No.
Like, if you're gonna consider buying a console specifically for those exclusives, I don't see why you'd then suddenly turn around and be like, oh, I'm okay waiting a year while memes and spoilers for these games I apparently care about fly around for that whole time.
Yeah.
And, like, you're never going to get to that without knowing the end of God of War Ragnarok. Come on.
But maybe in concert with how hard it is still to get one, that maybe these people who are like, man, it's still a pain in the ass to get one.
It's not going to matter.
Okay.
None of it
just
matters.
Plain devil's advocate.
It's nice for PC people who don't want to own a console. That's it.
Okay.
Or if you love a game that was on PlayStation and you have a high-end PC and you'd like to see it will look even better. That would be this certainly was an appeal for me of Horizon Zero Dawn, except I didn't have a PC that would run it better than a PlayStation 5. But that would be something I would double dip on some of the stuff that PlayStation makes just to see it look better on a full high powered rig a year later. I would definitely consider that.
Okay.
But buy it instead or not have a PlayStation? No, never.
And then finally, some news from CD Projekt Red. It shared during one of its financial meetings that a sequel to Cyberpunk 2077 is in development.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
In-house at CD Projekt Red. And there is a trilogy of Witcher games on the way that it claims, don't hold me to this, it claims that once the first one comes out, the other two games will come out at least within 6 years. So 3 Witcher games coming within a 6-year period. Do you believe that?
I'm going to have to file that under believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get one of those Witcher games in the next 6 years,
Yeah. That's my belief.
Yeah.
If you're also saying, okay, we're also working on a sequel to Cyberpunk at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I know they expanded and they're bigger and they have the Vancouver
it has new
office
studios.
now and all that.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah, but still.
Sure, surprise me.
Yeah.
Sure. But also, I'm surprised they want to make people think about Cyberpunk again.
Yeah. Well, it's turned it around.
Yeah, it has.
It sold 6 million copies in the last 2 years after all the.
Well, the weird thing is that the Edge Runners thing made it blow up again.
Yeah.
People saw that and went and bought the game.
People want to like it.
You don't see multimedia synergy work that well very often. Although that worked with the Netflix Witcher show too. People went and played Witcher 3.
Yep.
They really should have had that next gen patch out sooner by now.
Yeah.
I wonder if that still makes it by Christmas. They haven't mentioned that in a while.
They haven't. Yeah.
The fact they didn't mention it in this little update is a little concerning.
It is a red flag for sure.
Yeah, because I would really like to play that.
Yeah, so would I. Despite all the negative publicity, all the bad reviews, although there probably should have been more than there were, all the chatter on social media and online, people just want to like Cyberpunk. 2 million people still went and bought it. Or sorry,
Johnny
6
Hurricane
million
says they said today that the Witcher patch is still coming in Q4.
Oh, they did. Okay.
All right. Again, believe it when I see it.
When we see it. Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
That kind of output from CD Projekt Red is bonkers.
Oh yeah.
It's completely insane. It's nothing. There's no proof that any of this will happen.
There's no precedent that they can to indicate that they can do that.
We'll see.
But I guess they have a plan.
We're just telling you what they said. We're not saying it's actually going to happen.
There are no Hello Games.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. But they did turn it around. That game in particular,
somehow,
they stuck with it, and somehow public sentiment has come around on it.
I still hold that game is not very good in and of itself. Even
if it were perfect.
Yeah, even if you get past all the bugs and launch problems and performances. I've gone back to that a few times, again, including when they did the big patch and including when Edge Runners hit. And I just think that game is boring outside of the main story.
I really enjoyed it still.
There's nothing in that game, I find all the side stuff is just go kill a bunch of people and get a little phone call and call it a day. Like, none of the narrative hooks of Witcher 3 outside of that main story. The main story is good.
You're right. The side quests are not good.
It's just, especially because it's in that world. Like, that is the most believable, interesting city I have ever seen in a video game. Like, I believe the world, that Night City recreation, I believe that is a real place in a minute. Like, everything just flows properly. Everything makes sense where it is. Yeah. You can see how things got built up on top of each other because they didn't want to redo anything, so they just kept building it. Like, it's all so well designed, and they do nothing with it.
They really don't.
It's just a shame.
It is.
It's just it's really a shame.
But it has fought back, and a sequel is on the way. And I'll be honest with you, Matt, am I going to play that sequel?
Yeah, I'll try it.
I'll play it.
I hope it's more interesting. I'm definitely more interested in the Witcher trilogy they're talking about. But.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, there you go. Those are the smaller stories from the week that we didn't feel like deserved their own topics in GameFace 317. And now it's time to get on with the heart of the show. We're going to kick things off with the biggest story of the week, but not the biggest surprise of the week.
No, maybe the least surprising thing all year.
And we're going to pour some out for Google Stadia.
No, I'm not pouring anything out for that. I'm going to just drink that myself. Nah, it doesn't get anything. It's dumb. It was a stupid idea. Everyone knew that was a stupid idea except apparently Google.
Google Stadia is dead. Microsoft, Google has finally pulled the plug on yet another thing.
Oh, God, I forgot this pretentious-ass video.
That it spent so much money on and just killed.
You remember the people that were saying, like, oh, this is going to kill consoles?
Yeah.
This is like the new way all video games would be consumed from now on.
I mean, Phil Harrison was still pretty defiant.
Phil Harrison is an assassin.
When they announced this.
Phil Harrison is only brought in to murder things.
I mean, everything he touches dies.
Turns to dust.
There's a few other people I can think of like that. Here's Phil Harrison's quote.
And they all get six figures.
And they at least. Some of them get more than that, probably. Here's Phil Harrison's quote when announcing that Google Stadia was being killed. While Stadia's approach to streaming games for consumers was built on a strong technology foundation, it hasn't gained the traction with users that we expected. Ha ha. So we've made the difficult decision to begin winding down our Stadia streaming service. The underlying technology platform that powers Stadia has been proven at scale and transcends gaming. So he's hinting at...
They're finding a way to make
the tech work in some way. Yep. We see clear opportunities to apply this technology across other parts of Google, like YouTube, Google Play.
Sure. The tech is solid. It's just not useful for this use case.
And our augmented reality efforts, as well as make it available to our industry partners, which aligns with where we see the future of gaming headed. We remain deeply committed to gaming, and we will continue to invest in new tools, technologies, and platforms. They are not dedicated to gaming at all.
Of course not.
New tools, technologies, and platforms that power the success of developers.
There's a bunch of small developers that were making stuff that's supposed to come out in November that still don't know what's happening with their game.
There's 5 games also that are in limbo right now and may be lost to history. They are Hello Engineer, Pixel Junk Raiders, Outcasters, Pac-Man Mega Tunnel Battle, and Guilt. Right now, Ubisoft...
Not Pac-Man Mega Tunnel Battle.
Yeah, exactly. Right now, Ubisoft, Bungie, and IO Interactive are all trying to help players transfer their saves that they've generated on Stadia to other platforms. There's also some fans who are desperately reaching out to Rockstar, hoping that Rockstar will do the same with its games, because some of those people have literally hundreds of hours.
Yeah, that was very... I mean, look, if you put 5,000 hours into Red Dead Online on Stadia... I don't know what to tell you.
Is that a cut your losses kind of deal?
I think you made your mistake. I'm sorry. Like, what did you think was going to happen?
It is amazing watching. Here's the thing, Matt. It actually lasted from late 2019, and it's going to be shut down on January 18th, 2023. So it will have lasted a little over 3 years by the time it is shut down.
I think I gave it 2.
I think you did. I don't even remember what timetable I gave it, but I think both of us were very pessimistic about this. Pachter obviously was not. He was the one person who thought it was going to work. It did not work. Do you think game streaming will ever work, Matt? Do you think it'll ever be a thing?
No.
Never ever?
Not unless we find a way to defy the speed of light.
Yeah.
Like, Game Pass is the correct method. You get the thing, you download it, you run it from local hardware. Like, because like that's the
you
thing
have to have the option.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, is like, what the hell was this demo they were after? Like, people who love video games and want to play them in the maximum quality 4K everything, who have 4K televisions and mega high speed internet connections, but are refused to buy a video game hardware or a PC hardware except for a controller. Like, who is this person who desperately wants to pay full price for Assassin's Creed Odyssey but don't want to own any hardware anywhere except a controller? Like, what is that?
Well, I think that's another thing that would have to be tweaked. I don't think that you can sell games at full price for something like this.
No, I mean, at least they're refunding everything.
They are. We should have mentioned that right from the beginning. Stadia is refunding everybody for everything.
Yeah.
You get all the money.
Which is correct, but I'm just surprised they're doing it.
You get your money back for your games, for your DLC, and for your hardware.
Hardware for the Founders Edition account, everything.
You get all your money back.
So, good. That's good. Well played.
Google's handling the sunsetting of it correctly.
Yeah. But it's too bad they didn't handle the sunrising of it correctly. Which would have been to never rise it in the first place.
And Matt, this is another case where two jamokes like us sitting on a podcast could have told them that this was a horrible idea and they were going about everything wrong.
Yeah. You and I have both seen executive inertia in play before.
It's just...
When some of these people, once they come up with an idea, you cannot convince them. I've seen executives in a room be presented with unbiased, non-affiliated data that directly contradicted their long-standing strategy and belief about how to approach something, and simply tell the people who had done years of research they were wrong.
Yeah. Matt, I want to start a consulting firm called Duh. Where literally we send a report and we write shit and then we finish every sentence with duh. Because it's just insane that these horrible ideas, some of the ideas aren't even all that horrible. It's how they're executed that's horrible. And how much money was spent on, how much do you think Google spent on Stadia, Matt?
I can't even estimate that.
$4 billion, maybe?
In there somewhere. I mean, with all that and all the developers they had and like the salaries.
Did they close without ever releasing a game?
Yeah.
I mean, that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah,
when
knew that.
When Stadia realized it was not willing to commit the resources and time that it needed to build a first-party library of games, that was the end.
Yeah, and I think I said that at the time. I'm like, I can't wait for Jade to go somewhere else where she will actually get to ship something.
And that's happening.
And that indeed is what happened.
Yeah. That
was way before this happened.
Yeah. Are you surprised that Stadia lasted 3 years?
In the sense that I'm surprised Google didn't pull the plug sooner, because Google has a tendency to do that with things.
I do feel like a little bit of why it lasted so long was a lot to do with that reputation for Google. And when Stadia was announced, it was one of the most popular refrains about Stadia. That first week, everyone's like, well, it's Google.
Yeah, Google Graveyard, here we go.
And here comes another addition to
I think
Google's...
part of it was also that, like, they found other kind of more corporate methods of using the tech. Like, they found a way to pivot the tech into something that was more like, like meeting stuff and streaming thing, and they could integrate it into YouTube. And, like, so it wasn't really that urgent to shut down the gaming side of it until they sort of had finished, like, setting that pivot up. And then they're like, okay, shut the vestigial limb down and amputate it. And now we can go forward with what we're going to do with this from now on. I'm curious to see what happens to Phil. Because there's no
he just keeps failing up.
Well, there's no real reason he couldn't stay on and manage that new version of it.
He could. I mean, he'd probably be just as qualified to do that as he is to qualified to run a gaming platform at this point. Let's be honest.
Sure.
He is the king of failing up in the games industry.
It's pretty impressive.
Everything he has worked on has been a failure. PlayStation's only failure was under his stewardship. The PlayStation 3. It's the only platform that has not exploded for PlayStation, and he was at the helm of that.
And that initial presentation made about as much sense as this one did.
Well, it was all full of fake trailers and bull shots and all that stuff. Yeah. So, when
the rubber hits the road, all you're left with is Ridge Racer.
Yeah. Well, Google's hubris only, I believe, gave Stadia an extra 12 months.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately. I mean... I think 2 years, you knew it was going to last that long. I think the extra year was the bonus, although was it even really operating for the last, 8 or 9 months? Not really.
Apparently it was working for that guy who played Red Dead Online all the time.
But what I mean is, was it a functioning platform where you have people working behind the scenes to get more content to the platform? And are there engineers...
Clearly some of these other developers didn't realize they...
Yeah. Well, the crazy part is looking at this video and seeing all the stuff that they said Stadia was going to do. Hardly any of it ever happened.
We remember the November thing was supposed to be kind of a soft launch.
Right.
And then they're supposed to roll out the full thing
all
that spring.
All the YouTube stuff that never happened. All that stuff never happened. They had 3 years and still never got their product to what they promised in this debut presentation for Stadia. They never released any of the games that they had in development at Stadia. Or maybe they did release one. Was there one game?
I think there was one. I don't know. Nothing that I was paying attention to.
Yeah, but all the stuff that they show in this presentation that actually may have looked at least a little bit promising, none of that stuff came out.
No.
I
told you. I said, when all this was going on, I was like, this is all nonsense.
Yep. Someone's saying I forgot the Vita when talking about something. I don't know what that would be in reference to.
Failures? PlayStation's only failure?
Yeah. Was Vita a failure?
Vita was a failure.
Yeah, I guess it was. Was PlayStation VR a failure?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's like Vita borderline.
Vita was PlayStation VR wasn't the same kind of failure as Vita because Vita ended PlayStation handhelds.
Right. That's true.
For some reason, PlayStation VR did not end PlayStation VR headsets.
We're going to get into that too here in a minute.
But, no, the Vita was a failure.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, Phil Harrison had nothing to do with that.
Sneaky says a friend who was making a game for Stadia found out about Stadia shutting down from a tweet.
Yeah, I saw that a few times.
Yeah, that's a pretty common story around the industry right now. Lots of developers, Google, did not message this to its partners before the news went out wide.
No.
It's just...
And the internal email for the meeting about it was hey, anyone, if you can get into this meeting remotely, go ahead and do it. See you later. It was there was no indication that this was the whole thing is collapsing.
Yeah.
Which not super uncommon in a corporate setting, but it's all very gross.
I wonder too about the partners that Stadia had. Because it did have some. It partnered with Bungie on Destiny 2. It partnered with CD Projekt Red on Cyberpunk 2077. I'm wondering if there are considerations that Google needs to pay out to some of these partners with contracts that it promised that it never delivered on.
Probably, especially if they're giving refunds for everything.
It's just a disaster. It will be interesting. There will be some kind of a postmortem done on this someday where someone comes out and actually explains all the money that was wasted, what that figure is, and all the stuff that happened internally with Jade and the internal studios. And
Google has the money for it to waste.
Oh, for sure. If there's any company that can afford to just burn $3 or $4 billion on something, it's Google. But you start thinking about what could be done with that money, and it's just sad. Mm-hmm. It's sad. Think about how much money that is, Matt. That's like the GDP of some entire countries.
Yep.
And they just wasted it on poor management. Let's be honest.
As long as it didn't go to poor people. That's the important thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Vincent says, so it sounds like they're doing something now that people know about. I'm not sure what that means either. Vincent says, I saw one indie was told by their Stadia contact about compensation. Oh, okay.
It says that he's doing something about it. They're doing something about it now that people know about the lack of compensation.
Now they're going back to their partners and saying, hey, we may owe you some money.
We'll fix this now that people are yelling at us about it.
Well, to your point, if there's one company that owes you money that you feel pretty good about getting the money from, it's probably Google.
Yeah. Google and Amazon can pay the fuck out.
Yeah.
It's basically,
So if you're Amazon and you have Luna...
Which, again, when was the last time you thought about that?
Yeah. Or you're NVIDIA and you have GeForce Now, or you're any company that has a streaming service, what are you thinking right now? What are you saying?
Maybe you're finally thinking what I've been saying for years, solution in search of a problem. No one wants this.
Yeah.
The only way to make this work would be to have a Game Pass style thing where you just pay a nominal fee and simply have access to these things. Mm-hmm. Like a Netflix model. If if I'm paying $15 a month to access the Stadia library and just stream whatever I want to play, I will accept the technological drawbacks of the speed of light in exchange for getting all that stuff very cheaply.
Yeah.
Stadia's model was broken because they wanted the same amount of money for Assassin's Creed Odyssey as a store did. And then, as everyone, very rapidly found out, that Red Dead Online guy found out, it's like, yeah, you don't own that game. Like, you have no connection to that game.
That's a lesson a lot of people are learning today.
Like, that was the most obvious thing day one. Like, these things will go away when Google pulls the plug. And it's not if Google pulls the plug, it's when.
Yeah. Well, I remember us saying that. Yeah, your games, you may end up just losing all your games. And it is good that Google is rectifying that.
If PlayStation ended next week, if there's Sony's going out of business, PlayStation as a brand is going away, it's ending, I could get enough hard drives to install every game I own digitally on PlayStation onto a hard drive and have it that way. Yeah. Even if they got rid of all the other online stuff, any kind of PSN support, anything like that. You can't do that with Stadia. That's nothing. There's no way to salvage.
The service is gone. There's no way to run it. The code is worthless. Yeah.
It's not even as firm and permanent as a digital purchase.
Yeah.
If you have nothing to store it on locally, you get nothing.
Yeah.
And everyone's lucky. Everyone who was dumb enough to spend money on that thing is lucky that Google is doing the right thing and funding it.
Because it didn't have to.
They did not have to.
Technically, you got probably what was in the contract.
You signed a EULA that said you get jack and shit if this all goes to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, you signed the Willy Wonka contract there. You get nothing. Good day, sir.
The Abram says the Stadians. I didn't know there was a word for Stadia fanboys. The Stadians on the Stadia subreddit love it. It's like a cult over there.
Yeah.
Interesting. So everything somehow manages to find an audience.
Nothing is so terrible that someone on the internet won't love it.
I don't know if I'm willing to say that streaming will never work.
Like I said, streaming I think could work under the model that I described.
If you're paying $20 a month or whatever for unlimited play, something like that.
Fine. Sure, I'll put up with a couple seconds of lag in exchange for not having to pay anything beyond that. But you know what else I could do? Pay that same amount of money and go to Game Pass and not have any lag.
And download the game if you want to.
Yeah.
I agree. I believe for it to work, you're going to have to also have the download option.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be there.
Which kind of you've already torpedoed the streaming idea to begin with there.
Well, I mean, that if you just want to stream, that means you don't need to buy a piece of hardware that has a big hard drive to hold stuff. So there's some market there, but I agree, it limits the market again.
But yeah, you do. You need to, you can't just stream the data to install and uninstall on your hard drive. That's not how it works.
Well, no. I mean, you need a couple gigs or whatever for cache and stuff like that. You don't need 100 gigs or 200 gigs to hold game files. And that makes a difference.
I think you do, though.
Now you can buy a device. I don't think
that works.
What'd you say?
I don't think you can do that.
What do you mean? Just stream off a stick?
You can stream off a stick, but you're still getting the lag. You're still getting...
Yeah, I'm not saying it would take away the lag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm saying, if you can't install it, what's the point? You're not competing properly with Game Pass at that point, because you're paying almost the same amount of money for an inferior experience.
No, but my point is that the barrier to entry is less if you don't need to buy an expensive piece of hardware to download the stuff.
Yeah, but again, you're up against the wall of who cares so much about high-end gaming but also refuses to buy any hardware for it?
Yeah. I'm not saying you wouldn't have to buy any hardware. I'm saying that the hardware that you do buy would be way cheaper because you're not having to pay for the storage.
Right, but now you're up against this non-existent demographic.
Right. Yeah.
These people
you keep
don't
shedding
exist.
Potential consumers until there are no potential consumers.
Until you're down to a cult.
Pretty much. Yeah, what are they called again? The Stadians?
The Stadians. Which does indeed sound like some new Mass Effect race.
Ashes in the Hourglass says Matt should make your next film should be titled A Solution in Search of a Problem. Yep. So
the Stadians have arrived on Earth, and they want to do really stupid things, and we have to talk them out of it. But we don't know how they use verbs.
There's your next cartoon.
There you go.
Next sifted tune. So anyway, that's it. That's curtains for Stadia. The good news is if you did invest pretty much anything in Stadia, you're not getting any monthly charges back. But anything that you spent on actually buying games, any equipment that you bought, any of that stuff, you are getting all your money back, and you should consider yourself lucky that is happening. As Matt said, Google didn't have to do that. It's doing you a solid basically by recouping all your funds.
It's saving PR face pretty hard there, but and at least that does indicate two things to me. One, they don't want this technology to be sullied by that permanent because they have other plans for it. And B, they may not be done with gaming. Because they don't want everyone to think next time.
That's what I'm wondering.
Next time they try something like this, they don't want everyone to think, well, last time I threw all this money in a hole and I didn't get anything out of it. So.
I mean, I agree. They're definitely covering their ass in case they decide to go back into gaming. Personally, I do not think that Google will ever go back into gaming.
I think that's probably correct, but I do think they are hedging their bet on that.
I think they want their platforms, their phones and stuff like that to be a place for gaming so they can make money off of it without taking any risks on their own. And I think you're right. They want the sentiment around gaming on their platforms to be a positive one so that people spend their money on other people's products instead of theirs. So, I mean, Amazon with Luna, I don't see it pulling the plug maybe ever. I think it might be this thing that just like hangs around.
It's this thing they don't even promote it. It's especially weird because like I don't even see anything. Even when I load up Amazon itself, like I look at game stuff and buy game stuff and stuff on Amazon, and like it never even suggests Luna to me.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Well, it has AWS, so it just has this backbone infrastructure that can just run stuff like that without like breaking a sweat.
Whereas like Google is probably paying them to run Stadia.
You're
for
right.
A lot of it.
You're absolutely right. Yep. So I think probably Amazon will leave it around, and I do think when it all comes down to it, if anyone figures it out, I think it will be Amazon that figures it out. But I think game streaming is something that will truly be viable in like 15, 20 years, something like that. Like I think it's that far away, but I do think eventually it will at least be a viable business.
I don't think anyone cares. I think,
but people will change by then. We'll probably be gone. We probably won't see it ourselves.
I'm not going to be gone in 15 years. I don't know what you're
20 years? Yeah. Who knows?
I'm going to be in my 60s.
I mean, don't forget that one of our friends and colleagues just passed away.
Oh, yeah, but also don't forget that everyone in my family was in their 90s.
Oh, okay.
Unless they
I'm not that fortunate, so I'm counting my days already, Kyle.
I plan to be around. And when I say midlife crisis, I mean midlife right now.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm going another 46.
Yeah. I can't say I'll miss Stadia at all.
You can't miss something you never had.
I mean, I tried it a couple times. I didn't. You never even tried it?
No.
Yeah. I gave it a whirl.
I cannot emphasize enough. Fuck game streaming. I fucking hate it. I've only tried it a couple different. I've tried the GeForce Now. I've tried the Switch thing. It sucks. It feels terrible. I refuse to do it, and I do not believe it will ever be a thing, ever. You have to use the Game Pass local install model because otherwise you are giving an inferior experience. Again, if it was just like a thing where it's like $20 a month and I get this shitty streaming thing and I can play Assassin's Creed Odyssey like I'm underwater, like fine.
Yeah.
But like I don't feel like I'm getting ripped off for that.
Right.
But again, I can just go to Game Pass and do the same thing. Like who cares? Like, there is literally zero use case for this thing for me.
I also feel like Game Pass may have been what finally got Google to bail.
Yeah, I mean, Game Pass definitely proved to be the correct model for that.
Yeah,
certainly for now.
And it didn't. I guess Google didn't feel like it could pivot to that type of a service.
No.
Because it doesn't have the content. I mean, what makes Game Pass go is the first-party exclusive stuff coming day and date, and Google
and that everything is coming to Xbox anyway.
Right.
So like Xbox, Xbox has the pick of the litter of whatever they want to pick and choose to put on Game Pass in terms of third-party stuff anyway. Like, they've already got the pipeline. Yeah. Like, Google's starting from nothing there.
Yeah. Yep. So there you go. Rest in peace, Google Stadia. Can't say I'll shed any tears over it going away. And Matt sure the hell won't.
Don't let the door hit you. Not that you were ever inside to begin with.
And we probably will never have to talk about Google Stadia ever again.
Until Phil Harrison gets another job.
Well, and then we'll be like, oh, the failure of Stadia. He fails up. I'll say it again. Because you're right, though. He will get another job somewhere.
Yeah, probably end up being the new guy in charge of the DC Cinematic Universe.
Oh, Lord. That might be an upgrade. Over who's running it now.
Hard to say. Couldn't do worse.
That's true. That's true. So there you go.
Who's excited for Black Adam? Come on.
Yeah. So there you go. That is the demise of Google Stadia. The rise, well, it wasn't much of a rise. The debut, it's inauspicious life, and then it's death. All chronicled right here on GameFace. The whole arc, we saw it right here on this show. And this is the end. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about the other big story of the week. This week, all the big journos, all the big journo outlets, all the big influencers, not us, went to PlayStation and got to play PlayStation VR2. Matt, have you checked out any of the previews? It's kind of hard not to. They're everywhere.
Some of it.
I feel like we're the only people on Earth who have not played PlayStation VR2 at this point. It's sad.
Yeah,
but
I'm not sad about it. I don't know. Like, you call me when you got a price point.
Yeah.
Basically. Like,
I mean, that's really the only thing that's really left.
Like, I'm interested in that Horizon thing. That was cool.
It looks really cool.
What's it cost?
Yeah.
I mean, look, like, when it comes out, I'll probably buy it so we can play it. But, like,
I hope you do, because I don't want to.
Yeah, no, I don't think you should. I'll throw that money in that hole. I'll be the Stadia. I'll be the Stadian for this one. But yeah, like, well, how much is this thing gonna cost? I feel like I'm looking at $600 here.
I do too. I think they'll price it at $500, and they'll be like, it should be more, and they're probably right.
Yeah.
But I think that's still way too high.
Yeah.
So, the previews for it are glowing. Every single person who went and played this came back saying it's the bee's knees. That they love everything about it. It's the best VR HMD they've ever used. It is, when it does release, sometime in early 2023, it will be the best HMD on the market the day it releases. There's really no denying that. It will be the state-of-the-art VR at that moment. How long that lasts, who knows? We'll have to wait and see what HTC and Oculus do.
Well, beyond that, we'll have to see if they release any more freaking games for it.
Yeah. Like, right now, there are 30 known games in development for PlayStation VR2.
The thing.
Yeah, that was a big problem with the first PlayStation VR, although ultimately it did end up having a pretty good software library. One of the important things that we learned this week from all the previews, though, is that development for PlayStation VR 2 is going to be much easier. It was one of the things that they made a point to share with everybody. Not only will development be much easier for PlayStation VR 2, it will be much easier to convert 2D games into PlayStation VR 2 games. That was another big focus of theirs. They wanted to make sure that if you just made a normal quote-unquote video game, just a polygonal 2D game, that you can easily convert it over to PlayStation VR 2. So that could help with the library. But I'll be honest, Matt, like, you don't see as many third parties getting on board early with PlayStation VR 2 like you did with PlayStation VR. Remember Ubisoft?
Oh, yeah.
They were all in on PlayStation
Ubisoft
VR.
Could barely get anything out the door anyway.
Right.
So.
But think about all the publishers that were signing on and were involved.
Yeah, where's our Gotham Knights VR?
Where's all that stuff is my point. Like, you're not seeing it like you were with the first PlayStation VR because everybody lost money on the first PlayStation VR. And if they didn't, my guess is Sony subsidized them so that they did not lose money. But everybody knows that if you were on your own on the original PlayStation VR, you lost money. There's just no denying it. So it doesn't look like partners are as apt to get on board.
The other thing that's annoying is apparently the PSVR 1 stuff doesn't work on it.
It's not backwards compatible.
So there's going to be... Apparently there's like people... They're going to make patches that do make them work.
Really?
Like there's some of the developers...
Like official patches or like fan patches?
Yeah, developers for PSVR 1 games, some of them are working on updates for it. But there's no guarantee your favorite PSVR 1 game will get updated for that,
right?
Because it uses a very different way of tracking.
Yeah.
So hopefully there'll be. I mean, there's a couple PSVR 1 games I wouldn't mind trying on a higher end headset.
There's a bunch of them. If they wouldn't make me sick playing it on PlayStation VR 2, I'd actually absolutely give them a go.
Yeah, I don't know if that's in the cards.
Yeah, I don't know if it is either. It just may be me. Like maybe no matter how good an HMD is, it's just not going to work for me. I don't know. But this will probably be the final test. Like if
this doesn't work, I think you're just sensitive to that.
I'm screwed.
Thing.
Yeah, I won't be able to play it, which sucks. It's like something I've dreamed of my entire life, and it gets here, and I can't use it, which sucks. But you're right. Initial indications are that it will not be backwards compatible with PlayStation 1 VR 1. So all that software that was created for a platform that was only purchased by 5 million people, that stuff's just going to disappear and go to waste, unless the publishers get on board and actually do real work. But what incentive do they have? Like, do they really think that that game that didn't sell very well on PlayStation VR 1 is going to suddenly sell well on PlayStation VR 2 where the competition is way more stiff? Like,
I don't know.
It doesn't add up to me. Bloomberg reported this week that, and here's the real kicker, Matt, mass production of PlayStation VR 2 began last month, and Sony plans to produce 2 million units by March for launch.
Wow. Okay.
This,
well, you'll be able to find one.
Yeah, you will. This seems like a gigantic mistake to me, Matt. Am I missing something here?
If you are, I'm missing it too. I don't know what doubling down on this gets you, but maybe I don't know. I feel like the VR thing's kind of done. Like until some new twist shows up or like some new, I mean, this is, look, I mean, I appreciate the power of this thing and like what they're doing here, but I think the breakout VR thing is going to be something more Oculus Questy. Like you just sits there and you put it on and you go.
Yeah.
You know, not wired to something. You have to turn a PlayStation on. You have to like
all the stuff that goes along with PlayStation VR.
I mean, at least it doesn't need the camera and everything.
I mean, look at Quest 2. That's why it's taken off, because people just put the thing on and they just go.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about a PC or their phone or a cable. You just put the thing on your head and off you go. I mean, we know now that is really the future of VR. So again, as I've said since they first announced this thing, I am disappointed that this has a cable and a wire on it. Also something that Pactor has brought up over and over again. And I hope if they make the cable longer this time, I hope they do, so that you can actually get away from like your hardware. You don't have to sit next to the console.
It definitely needed a longer cable.
But even then, it's just...
I mean, at least with this one, you can face away from the TV.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to look at the camera.
Right, yeah. Like, they're struggling to create PlayStation 5s, enough of them, to manufacture enough of them to satisfy demand. And look, obviously, the components that you're using for PlayStation VR2 aren't the exact same components you're using for PS5, but there's probably at least a little bit of overlap. There's some stuff in there that you do use to build typically any piece of hardware that they could use to make more PlayStation 5s. Now, another thing that Bloomberg said is that they're hoping to release PlayStation VR 2 alongside an improved supply of PlayStation 5. And so they think they're going to have more available alongside the launch of PlayStation VR 2, but I don't know. I would be, if I was Sony, I would be dialing back production of these things. Like, I would just get enough to get it out there and launch it, and then hope evangelists love it and people get on YouTube and all these other places and watch people play it and then go and buy it themselves. Like, that seems like the smarter strategy to me. Flooding the market with PlayStation VR 2 seems like a terrible idea.
I mean, it might be a thing where it's like, if you got the factory time, just do it. And you don't have to worry. That way, if it does take off, there's units to buy.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe they're like trying to counter what happened with the PlayStation 5. And they're like, we want people to be able to walk into a store and see that they have these.
As long as they can produce it and it's not at the detriment of PlayStation 5, I'm all for it.
I can't imagine it matters that much.
You don't think there's not enough components that cross over between the two devices?
No. It would be a very different pipeline.
Okay. You're going to buy this at launch, Matt?
Probably. I mean, I don't know how else we're going to do it.
Yeah, I'm not going to cover it.
Sony's not going to send us one.
Yeah, I'd have to beg for it. And I'm not going to buy one, obviously, after my experience with the first one. Yeah. Now, if I try yours and it doesn't make me barf, then I'll get one. Mm-hmm. But other than the Horizon game, are there any games that have you really excited for it? Resident Evil Village, are you excited to play that again in VR?
No.
Not really. I mean, really, there's like one game I'm really excited to play right now, and it's coming out in like 3 or 4 months, according to Sony. Mm-hmm. The whole thing just seems like a horrible idea to me. And still coming in early 2023, so it's counting on everybody getting through the holidays and then coming back and being ready to spend, I think, at least $500 on this thing. Do you think there's any way Sony gets it to like $300 and just takes a bath?
That doesn't sound like them.
It doesn't. It just increased the price of PlayStation 5.
Yeah, it might end up being that eventually.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Vincent's asking if you ever played No Man's Sky in VR.
I did.
What'd you think of it?
It's fine.
Yeah. Nothing amazing,
really enhance
though.
Anything for me.
Yeah. That's kind of been the thing with me. Like, the amount of time I've been able to actually stomach PlayStation VR or any VR HMD, it hasn't felt transcendent to me, Matt. It just hasn't.
No.
And look,
once
new
the novelty
technology
of the actual presentation style wears off, there hasn't been a lot of must play. I mean, Beat Saber.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the X-Wing thing. I like the Eve Online thing with the turret, and so I like stuff that like immerses you in a thing.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yep.
But the novelty wears off pretty fast on most of that stuff.
It does. Yep. We're off for me. I got to at first I fought through being sick. I'm like, screw it. I'm going to stay in. I'm going to play this game because I want to play it. After I got sick like 3 times, it was no longer worth it. I was like, nope, not worth even 5 minutes playing this game to feel as rotten as it makes me feel. So, and I'm not alone. Every time I talk about this on GameFace, either somebody on Sifted or someone on our Patreon or someone on YouTube says, I'm just like you, Shane. I cannot play VR without getting deathly sick. So I'm not alone in this. There's other people out there like me who may have been burned.
Does seem to be a thing. I mean, it doesn't bother me. Like I said, when I first got the Vive, I played it for like 6-7 hours at a time.
That's crazy.
And it
would not work for me.
The only thing that bothered me was I would get hot. Like I had to like periodically take it off and wipe my face off because it was sweating.
Yeah.
I play like that's the Steam Lab or the whatever that was, the Valve Lab thing with all the demo stuff. I played that a lot. I played a bunch of weird shit. I played the lightsaber stuff a lot. I played shooters, that one where you're fighting robot androids with weird faces. They're fucking terrifying when they come loom over you. Like
what, the PlayStation VR one?
Yeah,
Firestorm or something like that.
It was called. I can't remember what it was called. It's called like Hard something or Hard K. You're fighting androids basically, and they were
not Boneworks.
No, they were swarming you. I can't remember what it was called.
Someone in chat will probably remember it. I'm actually curious, chat, are any of you guys interested in buying PlayStation VR 2? I want to see if there's anyone in chat who is setting aside the money right now to buy PlayStation VR 2. You're going to buy it day and date. And if you are, share how much you think it's going to cost at launch and how much you're prepared to pay for it at launch, and you're going to be okay with it. Big Smoke, PSVR made me sick, so I sold it on after a few weeks. I should have done the same thing. I should have sold mine. I sat on it all this time, and now it's not worth anything. But he says, but I'm really excited for PlayStation VR 2. Okay. Raphael Michael says Robo Recall is the game that you're talking about.
Not.
That's not it?
No.
Okay. The Abram says, I don't even have a PS5 yet. That's another thing. Like, a lot of people don't even have the base console yet so that they can buy PlayStation VR 2. Norix Nessie says, nope. The JBone29 says, if it's under 400. So is that 400 and under, or it needs to be under 400?
Doesn't matter. It's not going to be.
It's probably not. Too Quick Capri, maybe. Johnny Hurricane says, I said it earlier, but I won't go to wired after the wireless of Quest 2. Again, I feel like a lot of people feel that way. Andy T. Monahan says, makes for a decent stereoscopic 3D media player when 3D TVs disappear. That's a good point. I did just, not that long ago, sell my Panasonic Plasma 3D TV that was like my best friend for like 7 years. I did finally sell it, so I no longer have a 3D TV. So you're right, that is something that people could kind of repurpose it for. Danny Endurance, yes. I'm going to spend $500 on a bundle of some sort. So he's counting on spending $500, maybe getting a game, maybe getting an extra controller or two.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I think that's $700.
That probably will be. Yeah. But he's saying if it's $500. Wampler 13, I might buy one. I'll pay up to $600. Okay. Let me get you guys up on screen here, actually. Shneaky says, my friend will pay whatever it costs. He buys everything on launch. Well, that's a good friend to know then.
Yeah.
Noxiatornitis, I get motion sick with many FPS games. Otherwise, I'd be interested. Okay. Yeah, if you can't handle just playing first-person shooters, do not play VR.
For sure.
You will barf immediately. Justin Horman, I wish I bought a Rift S when they were out. I have the original Rift, and I just hate setting up the sensors if you want to play with it. Yeah, it's a pain. It's what we were talking about earlier, the barrier to entry. Having to set it up, having it connected to another piece of hardware, having to need another piece of hardware just to play it. It matters. It makes a difference. Cinetyke, I'm not, but I have no space to use it. I have a Quest 2 and can play some limited movement games and another space for my PS5. Yeah, I can't imagine anybody who has a Quest 2 also buying PlayStation VR 2.
Yeah.
That seems like a really hard sell. Raphael Michael, what about Insomniac's game Stormworld? Is that what you're talking about, Matt?
No.
Okay.
No, it was a much smaller thing. I'm looking for it.
Swanland, I bought PlayStation VR and got a little bit in before my PS4 Pro went kaput, so I'm not buying this.
Raw data.
Raw data? Okay. Vincent says, I want to try VR at some point, but I don't want to invest that much in something that might not agree with me. It's tough. I suggest try to go into a Best Buy or something and play it there, but then it's like, I don't know if I want to strap on a VR HMD from public with COVID going around. Like, that's probably the easiest way you'll ever get COVID. Trying somebody the VR helmet after somebody else just tried it. So be careful out there, people.
Well, probably not. It's not, contact of objects isn't really a big deal, but like it's still.
If you're sweating, I don't know, man.
That's not how it transmits.
Sub Sam Jam. I use Oculus for about a year, and I think I'm over VR until it goes fully wireless with no more comfortable, lighter headsets. Agreed. Erebus Jones. I really want to try it, but it's just so much money, and the games just aren't there yet. And then finally, the Big Smoke 82. I'm hoping the tech has improved to reduce sickness, things like eye tracking and haptic, plus OLED HDR screens. You're right. All that stuff should absolutely help. But I'm going to let y'all be the guinea pigs. I'm going to let Matt be the guinea pig, and hopefully he'll let me try his, and I can give it a go, but I'm not buying it. Well, I didn't buy the first one sight unseen. I had tried it at, like, conventions, but it's like you put it on, you play the demo for 7 minutes, you take it off. You walk, you wait 15 or 20 minutes, you sit down, you do the next demo. I never got sick in that environment. I got sick once I sat down and played the same thing for like more than 10 minutes. That's how it really got me. So, yeah, I'll let you guys jump on that grenade. I'll let Matt jump on that grenade. And I agree with you, Matt. I think $500 minimum is the price, and I think it's going to be dead on arrival at $500. And I think this is a terrible idea. I think PlayStation should have delayed the launch of PlayStation VR2 at the very least until the end of the year next year, and more likely even early 2024. I just don't see any situation where this is going to do well in the current environment we're in. Like, inflation and all that stuff, it's probably still going to be a problem come January, February, March of next year. It's not going to fix. It's a worldwide issue. It's going to take a while for every territory to finally get everything going the way it used to. It's a mess. It's not going to fix itself overnight anywhere in the world. So I just think this is a terrible decision. I don't know why they're going all in on this. It's like I said with the lower third, the Titanic. It's like this massive thing that Sony has spent so much R&D money on, and they've had this target date, and they announced it before things got really bad, and now they're locked in, and it's just this giant ship of money that's riding along towards a big iceberg, and they're trying to turn, and you can't turn it. It's just, it's going to hit the iceberg, in my opinion. So we'll see how it goes. I hope I'm wrong. I never root for a piece of hardware or a platform to fail, ever. So I do hope it works. Like, I root for all these companies to do well. So
not Stadia.
Yeah, I never rooted against Stadia, though.
I did.
You did. You definitely did.
I think that's terrible. Terrible. I mean, I don't think PSVR 2 is a bad idea. I just don't understand.
I think the timing and the pricing is terrible.
This is a good idea right now.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. It's okay. Like, sure. Like, Sony can take the hit, I guess. But like, I know I'm gonna feel stupid when I buy the thing at launch, so we can play around with it and test it and talk about it. And like 6 months later, it's like half price.
Yep. Well, I mean, they never really dropped the price of PlayStation VR 1.
I guess not. But
it stayed like $400 the whole time.
Yeah, but like even like stores didn't like clearance it out or anything to get it off the shelves.
No, it's shocking actually. But anyway, that's the latest on PlayStation VR 2. If you want it, I say save your gift cards that you get at Christmas and the holidays. You're going to need a lot of money to buy it. So maybe that's how some people will look at it, is like they'll take all their gift cards that they get at the holidays and hold them.
Yeah, but like don't treat the PSVR 2 as aspirational. Like, come on.
That's a good point. But anyway,
I want to play the Horizon game, and I can't really think of what else really. I mean, especially if the old stuff isn't compatible.
Right.
Like, that's part of the interest in terms of like an upgrade for me would be like, oh, I'd like to play that Iron Man game without 4-minute load times.
Or I'd like to play Werewolves Within. Like, there were some VR games I could
Star Trek
play.
Game again. Like, that'd be cool with a better headset with like
higher frame rate, HDR, better screens.
I mean, the big thing for that would be like, I mean, the most interesting tech upgrade on this is the fact that the focus moves with your eye.
Yeah. It makes a big difference.
That's a big deal.
And the foveated rendering is a big difference. So there's stuff in there. And again, all the previews have been glowing. You can check them out. We curated a bunch on Sifted. Everybody who's tried it loves it. So I just want to make sure we get that out of there. I don't want you to think we were just going to beat on PlayStation VR 2 the whole time.
It does seem to be a good piece of tech.
Yeah.
I just don't know
it looks like a great VR HMD.
I just don't know where it fits.
I just don't know if there's a market for it.
Especially at that price.
Yeah. It'll be a tough
price.
Yep, it'll be a tough sell. So there you go. That's the latest on PlayStation VR 2. Next up, we're going to talk about a game that I'm really disappointed in.
I mean, that's the story of this franchise. Last 3 or 4 entries, really.
Yes, that game is Star Ocean: The Divine Force. It was one of the bigger games at Tokyo Game Show just about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. Another Square Enix JRPG. Matt, do you realize that there are 8 or 9 Square Enix JRPGs that will have been released in the last 6 months of 2022 when it's all said and done?
I mean, at least they're all pretty different.
It's crazy.
I don't know what they're after there.
Is this what Square Enix was talking about when it's like we're going to drop our Western studios and like concentrate on our strengths or whatever?
Maybe.
Like,
I don't know how many of the... I mean, I played various Day Life, and that's one of the most boring things I've played in a very long time. Like, I guess it's well named.
Well, we're going to talk about Star Ocean. Matt, have you ever been a fan of the Star Ocean franchise?
I like the first 2.
Yeah.
Way back in the day. And the third one was okay. And then, was it the third one that turned out to be like a VR simulation of a science fiction space thing?
Yeah.
Or was that 4? Because which one is this 6 or 7?
This is 6, I believe. The Last Hope, I think, was 5.
Well, there was another one that was called like Integrity and Faithlessness.
Oh, right.
Which one was that?
That title was like a mile long. I thought that was the 4th one.
Maybe? I can't remember.
I don't either. Because I'll say this about this franchise. They all kind of bleed
wasn't
together.
The Last Hope a remake of the space one? Of the one where that turned out to be everything was a simulation?
They're all space ones, though.
They are, but one of them turned out to be a simulation. Like half, three-quarters of the way through the game, it turns out that you're playing a simulation and nobody's real.
Yeah, I think that was the Faithlessness one.
No, that was that was a long time ago. That was 3, I think.
Huh.
And that was like one of the most hated, or 3 or 4. It was one of the most hated twists in the history of everything.
Integrity and Faithlessness is Star Ocean 5 from 2016. Okay.
Yeah.
Swanland says, Star Ocean, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3, 4, 5 times. Johnny Hurricane says, Star Ocean chat is about as bad as Kingdom Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Ammo Clip 20 says it was 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the one with Edge Maverick.
Oh, yeah.
As the main character.
That's right.
And I believe The Last Hope was a remake of that.
Was it?
But I might be wrong. Or maybe that was a remake of the first one.
Well, Last Hope,
I can't remember.
There's some elements in The Last Hope that are brought over into this game.
Mm-hmm.
This game is coming to everything. Its release date is October 27th, and it's coming to PC, both PlayStations and both Xboxes. Not Switch. Switch is the exception. Obviously not Stadia either. But it is...
I forgot to play the demo of this.
One thing I'll say about Star Ocean is it was ahead of its time. It is one of the first Japanese action RPG franchises. When everyone else was still making turn-based stuff, Star Ocean was one of the first that went to full real-time combat and kind of paved the...
God, this looks exactly like the other one.
You can't tell the difference in any of these games, Matt. They all look the same. The character models in this are abysmal. So we talked about which Xenoblade Chronicles was it that had like the young girls with the big boobs and like dressed in like nothing.
I mean, that was 2.
That was 2.
The blades were
This
like
game
that.
is like that.
Yeah.
There are girls in this that look like they're like 10 or 11 that have like heaving cleavage and like wearing like mini skirts and like... So there's a little bit of that element in this.
That guy even looks a little like an older Edge Maverick.
Yeah.
Like if Edge Maverick joined Def Leppard.
Well, the plot of this game is it all starts out and you're on your ship. You and your crew are on your ship. You are under attack by... You don't know who you're attacked by at first. But because you have this cargo, this secret weapon on your ship. And so these other people attack your ship. They're trying to get the weapon. Your ship is on the verge of going down. So you and your crew, you all jump into the escape pods and you escape. And you all fly down to this planet that's just below your ship. And you all land in different places. And basically
I mean, it's Star Ocean in a nutshell. It's
like,
we crashed on a planet.
It's always the same.
You thought it was going to be in space, but now we got to run around a jungle for 40 hours.
That's pretty much what you have here. So all the pods land. It's your job to find all your crew, where their pods landed, and there's one person in particular that you're trying really hard to find.
Is it conveniently on a planet with like medieval level technology?
Yes. Yeah, so one thing I was getting at is that Star Ocean is one of those rare RPG franchises that satisfies both sci-fi and fantasy. And that's how they do it, Matt.
Sci-fi characters get stranded in a medieval RPG.
In a fantasy world, basically. And that's exactly what happens here, just like all the prior ones. So your pods all land on the planet. You run into this princess and her bodyguard, who are denizens of the planet. They tell you they know the planet. You tell them you're looking for a friend. You don't know where they are. And they're like, oh, well, we're looking for somebody too. Want to team up? And you do. So you team up with them. They're your first two party members.
That sounds like an excellent tutorial.
Yep. You team up with them, and off you are trying to find
fit in that thing?
Your crew member. Apparently. The game is under development by Tri-Ace, which is the studio that has made pretty much all of the Star Ocean games. So it's not like they've handed it off to a different studio. It is being...
Are there people there that have been there the whole time, like through the whole series?
Yes.
I mean, wow.
Yep. This game is launching to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Star Ocean, which is pretty crazy to think about. I did not think it was that old.
Oh, yeah, it was on the PS1.
Yeah.
Or maybe the original was Super Famicom. I can't remember.
Well, the slight spoiler here is this happens all in the first, 10 minutes of the game or whatever. This is you meeting the princess and, her bodyguard or whatever. And she throws you a sword so you can fight your first creature.
God, this is exactly like at least two of the others.
Yep. So
if you showed me this and told me it was an old Star Ocean game, I'd believe you.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember any of this
Even with
stuff,
the visuals. Clearly. One Super Master Gamer says the lip sync is very bad. It is awful. And I don't think that they've redone the lip syncing for the English voices. I think that the lip syncing is
even try to
only
match
for they didn't even try. They're just like, you know what? We'll just run the same facial animation.
You know what? It's Star Ocean. I'm sure the dub was done after everything was done.
Yeah. Swanland says Tri-Ace can't make 3D RPGs. I would not disagree with that, Swanland. I think that's pretty accurate.
The Star Ocean games in the 3D era are just unique to me in just how they have never progressed. They have never, not even stagnated. They just don't do anything else.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
They've very much been the same. Now,
you could probably remake this as a PS2 game, like a top-down 2D game, and not really lose a lot.
Well, now I'll get to it in a second, but they do some new things with the gameplay in this.
Integrity and Faithlessness was so boring, I couldn't tell you anything about it.
Yeah.
I could describe the cover for it. I think it was like a green silhouette of a guy in a nebula or something.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That's probably what the box art will look like for this, too. So as it turns out, the weapon that they shot down your ship for is what, and this is a spoiler I was talking about, although it's not that big of a spoiler if you watch any trailers for this game, is essentially a mag from Phantasy Star Online. You get this little drone that flies around following you around, and it gives you a bunch of abilities that you normally wouldn't have. And then it also has its own skill tree, basically, where you can level it up and it can become more powerful in addition to leveling yourself up and your party members. But it's basically a mag. It's called a Duma. It allows you to fly, and it takes a little while before you actually get that ability. But once you do, you basically hold the R1 button, and then you adjust the trajectory, and then you kind of burst out into open space and fly. And then if you tap the X button, then you'll start hovering and kind of floating back down to the ground. So not only can you use it in combat, because you can essentially fly up into the sky, and then you can do the special maneuvers like these dodges, and then you can catch enemies off guard. You can get first attack, basically. Or there's another thing that you can do where it's basically you attack from the side, and it's called a blind side attack. And that will actually stagger enemies, which allows you then to dole out a lot more damage on those enemies. So basically what you do is you hold R1, you hover up into the air, and then you try to line up the enemies down on the ground so that you can attack them from the side. Now they'll try to attack you, and you can tap the L1 button to do a strafe or whatever. And if you tap that L1 and do a strafe and then very quickly come down, that's how you get the blind side. So you'll do damage, plus you'll stagger the enemy, and then when you follow up, it just completely annihilates them. So it's a way to take out large groups of enemies at once, essentially. within the confines of the action-based combat. That is so. The surprise attack, that's something that came in from Last Hope. That was one of the elements of Last Hope that they brought over to this game. And really all you have to do to make it work is you have to break the line of sight with you and the enemies. And then again, as I said, it'll stagger the enemies and leave them open to more damage. There's 2 gauges in the game. There's a VA gauge. And the VA gauge generally controls the Duma abilities. You need to have that meter full or you can't use the Duma at all. And it refills like really quickly all on its own. Or you can perform perfect blocks or perfect dodges and it will refill that gauge more quickly. The other meter is an ability points meter. And basically every attack that you do in the game other than the Duma stuff is governed by the ability points. So this happens a lot in this game, Matt, where you are doing a combo and you just run out of ability points in the middle of the combo and you start hearing dun, 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 like this awful sound effect telling you that you've run out of ability points. I would rather just hear nothing than hear that every time because it happens constantly. Now, as you level up, it does get a little better. And you can, do at least fight one enemy before you run out of your AP points and you have to wait for them to refill. But in the early parts of the game, every single time you fight an enemy, you're hearing dun, 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 dun. Oh, crap, I'm out of ability points again. And now you're seeing the Duma stuff for the first time here in the B-roll. This is the point where it kind of rolls out of the pod and you discover it and you're like, oh, this is what they wanted. And this is how it works. So you hold R1, you turn blue, and you kind of float up into the sky. And then you can dive down and attack enemies. So you can see there, I did the sidestep first and then came in and then I caught the enemies off guard and allowed me to open them up to do more damage. But this is the whole system right here that you're seeing right now, as far as the combat is concerned. Now, it's also used for traversal. You can jump down. It's like a lot like Breath of the Wild. You have these high vistas that you're coming down off of. So instead of having to like walk down the path all the way down to the valley, you can just jump off of the edge of the cliff and just float all the way down. And then you can also use it to get on rooftops because once you tap R1, you set the trajectory of your boost. So you can be on the ground, tap R1, and then pull back on the stick so your trajectory is up towards the sky, and it'll shoot you up onto the roof. And as you play the game, mastering the mechanics for both combat and traversal from the Duma become really, really important. So that is the part I was talking about, Matt, where they actually did try to do something a little bit different with this one as far as the combat is concerned, while it also being at least a little bit inspired by prior games in the franchise. You can switch between characters at will. You just tap down or up on the D-pad, and you can cycle through all the characters in your party. You tap left or right, and that lets you target specific body parts. So you can see right now on this boss, I'm targeting his knee. If you tap left or right on the D-pad, it'll cycle through all his weak points. And eventually I figure out that he has a weak point on his head, and then you use the Duma ability to fly up to get to his head, and then you attack his head, and you can take him out in just like a couple attacks once you figure that out. And this carries through the whole game, the targeting points. And enemies have weak points. There's elemental angles to it as well, as far as using the right elements on the right enemies with a specific alignment. You know me, Matt, I hate stamina meters, and basically the ability points meter is really a stamina meter. It just keeps you from being able to spam and basically play the game as a hack and slash, which is what most people are going to want to do when they play this game. There are 3 attack buttons. They're square, triangle, and circle. Each one of them has a different cooldown time, and a lot of getting good at the combat in this is kind of mastering subliminally when those 3 different attack buttons are going to be ready to fire off again. As I said, you can upgrade the Duma's abilities. Each character also has a skill tree, their own independent skill tree. You can adjust pretty much how you improve each ability manually. So when you pick something that you want to upgrade, you choose the percentage that you want to upgrade it, and then that scales into the upgrade points. It's okay, you want 40%? Well, that's going to cost you 2 upgrade points. You want 80%? Well, that's going to cost you 4 upgrade points or whatever. It allows you to be a little bit more granular with how you do your upgrades instead of everything just being kind of binary. There's also equipment that you equip. You get new swords, like the one character has like the rings that he attacks with. You get new armor, all that stuff. And it's not crazy. It's not like you're constantly getting drops and like, oh, here's new armor, and it's like 1/1000th more stronger than the armor that I have equipped already. Like, usually when you get something in this game, it's worth equipping like right away. It's a meaningful step up from what you had before, and I do appreciate that. Weapons, once you have the weapon, you can upgrade it with gems to make it more powerful. Someone said the lip sync is terrible. The voiceover is atrocious. The voice work, the writing, the facial anime, all terrible, all abysmal. Another one of those games where it takes like 5 minutes for them to say something that they could say in like a sentence. It's just overly wordy script that just goes on and on. The cinematics are awkward. They're shot from weird angles. They have a fascination with cell phones. Like, he has a cell phone, and there's just these like 10-minute long cinematics where he's talking and it just has this still image of the cell phone in his hand. Like, it's bad. As I said earlier, there's some of the questionable sexualization of young girls in this where you feel uncomfortable looking at this 11-year-old with like quadruple D boobs.
Everybody's head's kind of too small too
for their bodies. Yeah. It's not a good looking game. Like, the character models look okay when they're just sitting there.
Well, yeah, because they all look like dolls.
They do. Yeah.
They like a bunch of action figures walking around.
Yeah, they don't look real. Yep, absolutely.
It's like some Dreamcast shit.
So it is kind of in high res though.
Yeah.
So to Matt's point, there is a demo out there now. It's a few hours long. If you want to play this before you decide to take the plunge, as I said, it is coming out October 27th. And the last part of this month is pretty much loaded with big games. And as I said earlier, there's so many JRPGs coming out. Not just JRPGs from Square Enix. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't understand why it is
covering the whole thing at this point. Is Octopath Traveler 2 this year?
I think it's early next year.
Next year.
But
that's really the only one that has
trips the trigger.
Yeah.
All of it, the rest of it, it's like, and we're going to talk about another. We're going to talk about 2 more JRPGs.
I forgot to play this demo because
you just forgot to play it
because it's just Star Ocean.
Yeah. Well, now you're seeing some of the traversal stuff with the Duma, and you can see the Duma there. It's that little contraption that follows along behind you. But you can see you tap R and you hover, and then you set the angle that you want to fly, and you release R and you shoot out, and then you can hit X and it will allow you to float down. And this mechanic, eventually, once you start getting into the levels are built in such a way that this mechanic becomes very, very handy. Now, the game is not open world per se, but it puts on a pretty good beard. Playing it, you feel like it is open world, even though the worlds are basically linear cattle chutes that are just taking you to kind of the next open area. It is a lot like God of War. You have these areas that are extremely linear that will break open to these bigger areas that still end up taking you to the same place. You just have a bunch of different pathways you can take to get to that same place. But ultimately, all the levels in this are pretty much linear. There's a lot of like just getting from point A to point B. There are towns in the game, and the towns are exactly what you'd expect. You can go there. There's shops and people to talk to, and there's new equipment to buy. And I've only played this for a couple hours. I've already made it to 2 major towns in the game. The other thing I found about this game is you can just run past everything. Like, I got tired of fighting like rank and file enemies down on the ground, and so I just started flying and running past everything, and that's how I got to a second town. Is I just ran past the enemies for a good 3 miles, a good virtual 3 miles before I got to the next town. So the worlds in this are big, but they're very repetitive. You fight a lot of the same enemies. A lot of the same textures are repeated over and over again. There's just so much competition for JRPGs over the next few months. I just really struggle to see myself recommending this to somebody. And we're going to talk about a couple RPGs here in a minute that I would recommend over this game. I played 3 JRPGs this week. This was the worst one I played. Easily the worst one. And I'm sure some of you are going to watch the B-roll for the next couple games.
You didn't play Various Day Life.
I did not.
So,
but I guarantee people are going to sitting watching the show are going to watch the next couple games and say I'm crazy for saying that those games are better than this. But I am just telling you.
No, I think both of them at very least look better than this.
Some people will think this game looks better. I think.
Well, some people need to watch
some
things
people
that
will be
anime.
wrong, but some people will say this looks better. El Guapo says Octopath Traveler 2 is later this month. I don't think it's this month. Because we just did Dossier. And
it does seem like you'd want to release that in October.
Well, Octopath.
That's what I said.
It does seem to make too much sense. And if I did not see that when I put together Dossier, that is a huge mistake on my part, and I apologize. But I would be surprised if I missed it. But I'm sure this game is going to cost full price. Like, I don't think it's going to cost $70 full price. Here you're seeing...
February 24th.
It's what?
Octopath Traveler's February 24th.
It is early next year. That's what I thought. Here you're seeing the skill trees for the actual characters, and they're gigantic. But one thing I will say is there's only like 3 different disciplines that they branch off from, and they're really deep once they branch off from those, but there are only really like 3 categories that you end up branching off the tree. As I said, you can also upgrade the Duma. Here you're seeing all the interface for all that stuff, where you can upgrade your mag, basically, to give it better powers and help you with your traversal and with your combat, because it is a dual-purpose device that works for both. But I really have, after playing this for a few hours, I really have very little draw to continue playing this game. Like, I'm not looking forward to this game when it comes out at the end of October. And the other thing, too, is that, like, I'm going on vacation on, like, the 15th, and I'm not back for, like, 10 days. When I come back, it's going to be a mad rush to play all the games of late October, and I just see this one falling by the wayside, Matt.
Yeah. I mean, I wish I liked Star Ocean more than I do, but every single one of them is just a disappointment.
They're just dull and boring. Like, the stories are never great. Like, I just never get caught up by the characters. Like, I do like that it is a dual setting where you get both, like, the sci-fi angle out in space, and then you get the more medieval fantasy stuff down on the ground. It does kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, but...
Yeah, it kind of has a Phantasy Star thing going on.
Yeah.
There, but, like, it never does anything with it.
I mean, especially with the mags now, it really... Yeah. But you're right, though. Down on the ground, it looks a lot like Phantasy Star Online. Like, a lot of the enemies look the same. Like, the environments look the same. I'd rather play that, though, than Star Ocean. I'll put it to you that way. And Phantasy Star Online is, what, 23 years old at this point?
Yeah, I mean, you can play the sequel online right now, but...
Yeah, I downloaded it and still haven't played it. I'll have to give it a whirl sometime. But anyway...
Good, but I don't have the attention span for that kind of thing anymore.
Yeah. But anyway, that is Star Ocean, the Divine Force. Again, is coming to PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series, and it launches October 27th. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about another JRPG. This one is one that I had already played a little bit, and then Matt dove on it over the last week and a half and has been playing it a ton, and that is Valkyrie Elysium, another Square Enix JRPG. This one is already out, though.
Yeah.
So I had played it a good bit, and when we talked about it last on GameFace, I carried the discussion for the most part. Now I want to flip the tables and let you lead the discussion and share your experiences with playing the game, because I've already kind of shared mine. And I will say this, too, that I have played a lot more of this game, and I like it even less than I did when I talked about it on GameFace. How are you feeling about it, Matt?
Fine. I played the demo, which was weird because that demo doesn't really end.
No, it just goes on and on and on.
It sort of stops letting you make forward progress, but you can grind as much as you want, but there's no reason to grind because you can't hold any more items.
And it was nice to see that the saves did, in fact, carry over.
Save did carry over. I wouldn't have played it without it.
Hell no.
Save carries over, and like, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. It's
this is also an action RPG, by the way.
Yeah, and the
combat's all in real time, action based.
They're kind of trying to do a character action thing, but they're not really pulling it off. It's there, like there's parries and counters and aerial combos and various tricks you can use, but like you don't really need to go beyond the bread and butter much as long as you know what the elements do. So like it's kind of like you'll see like Sony Legend has done a couple of GIFs I think of this with like. Don't let that fool you. Like, it's not that deep, frankly. It's like, don't think this is some kind of Sekiro thing.
You don't even need to match the elements, honestly.
Not very often.
The game is still really easy.
I've actually gotten killed a couple of times. beyond the demo. Like, the demo dropped health way more than the main game does.
Yeah.
From what I see. And sometimes I pick up health from enemies, and it doesn't restore my health.
Like, really? Like, it's a bug?
The glowing blue, the glowing green. Like, sometimes it jumps into my character, and the life doesn't recover.
Huh.
I've had that happen.
I haven't seen that happen.
Didn't really matter. I mean, it's like I really only like get killed when I like, oh, this guy's stronger than I thought he was, or like that attack you can't dodge that attack by doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's if you do die, you just like respawn at the last thing and try it again. Like, it's very forgiving.
That's actually something I should mention about. I'm glad you brought that up about Star Ocean before we get too far into this game. Star Ocean, if you die, you replay big chunks of the game, which is crazy. I actually had a part in Star Ocean where I fought a boss, beat the boss, made it a good like 20 minutes past the boss, and then when I died, they respawned me to like 15 minutes before the boss. Something to keep in mind about Star Ocean, and something that they really need to fix. But anyway, you're right.
Can you save any time in Star Ocean?
No, it cuts you off at certain points. Like during boss fights and stuff like that, it won't let you save. But I do think generally you can manually save. But there's certain parts where they block you out. The checkpoints are great. They're constant, and you never have to retread much ground if you die. Like, hardly at all.
No. And so it's like, the story is fine. Like, it's if Odin has a fight with Fenrir and gets his eye poked out, so he resurrects this Valkyrie to do his job for him and to rescue undead souls or whatever. Odin could not possibly be more evil. Like, more obviously going to betray you later on.
Yeah.
Also, like,
you're actually helping him. You're returning him back to his former form.
Yeah, and you're clearly going to get screwed by it later.
Because the wolf, like, marred him. And as you rescue souls, his skin heals up.
Also, he looks like this, but he sounds like the voice acting's like an old man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did you not realize that he's like a hot, long blonde hair rocker guy? Like, where is that? I mean, he sounds like you'd think Odin would sound.
Yep.
But it's like no one showed the voice actor the character design of this Odin.
Yep.
He looks more like he should sound like Jaime Lannister or something.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And it's fine. You run into like rival Valkyries who are fighting you for reasons that you don't understand, and Odin's like, "Oh, that sounds like a bad thing. You better go kill them if you see them again." It's like, "Oh, I bet they're fighting against Odin because Odin's gotten corrupt." I don't know. It's like there's not a lot of twists and turns in this.
It's kind of easy to see where everything's headed. Agreed. And for those of you who maybe didn't watch the episode we talked about this, it is set during Ragnarok. Odin has a clash with Mjolnir, the wolf. The wolf almost kills him. And basically, you are trying to cleanse souls to restore him and to fight off Ragnarok, which is the end of everything.
Or so the Germans would have us believe.
Right. Yeah.
And she's kind of like, she's a rather single-minded entity. And you do gather like, I can't remember the name. I mean, it's the Norse word for like warrior. Basically, it's Aaronjar or anything.
That's close.
It's a word from mythology that describes the warriors that are in Valhalla. Like that's who they are. They come back to fight as Odin's army,
and they become party members.
Yeah, so you can summon them.
You just tap R1, and then as you collect more party members, it fills up the 4 face buttons. So you just tap R1, and then the corresponding face button, and they just jump into action. In the demo, they gave you like 3 right away. In the final retail version of the game, I still only have 2 of those. I've only earned 2 at this point.
You get them much slower, and also they take them away in the demo after the tutorial. Once the tutorial's over, you have
earn
to
them again. Yeah,
fight them.
And I only have 2 in the retail version of the game at this point, so I haven't gotten back out to where they were in the demo.
Early on, that's the whole thing, is like beating bosses to free these souls that can then become your allies, and then you have a couple, like the second one you have to kind of go find they have to find their stuff to like restore their memories so they remember who they are, so that then they'll join.
And that's a little annoying.
Yeah, because you got to do this thing where like you got to summon these butterflies to follow them around. It takes forever.
Which was cool at first. I was like, oh, cool. Like, I'm following this herd of butterflies around. And then after I got to like the 5th time, I was like, okay.
Yeah, gone with it. And it's like you want to be able to like navigate this stuff without that, but it's like everything looks the same, and there's no way to tell where they want you to go. So you kind of have to use it to just not waste your time.
Sound Wizard and Swanland shared this Einar jar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't pronounce it as it's spelled though. It's like Ernar or something like that.
Yeah. Ashes in the Hourglass is asking, how do you make a Valkyrie profile game that looks this gray? Matt and I were talking about this off camera before we started the show. That this scene actually has some color, but for the most part, it's all like tan,
tan,
brown,
gray, and brown. It's like
and white. It's a lot like Eco, honestly.
Sort of, except Eco has a flair to how it's depicting things. This just feels like somebody made a video game out of a very gloomy day.
Yeah,
and
it made it cell shaded.
Sort of. People keep talking. I don't really see a lot of cell shading there. I see there's a line around her, but like nothing else really looks like that.
Yeah.
It's a weird art style.
It is a weird art style. It's not a particularly great-looking game. It doesn't look bad either. I mean, I keep going back to what you said when we first started discussing the game, when you said it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It really, everything about it is
it's weird. Like the discourse in this game is strange because like there's people that like seem to really love this thing.
I don't know
like,
how.
Okay, like, but like they're like all mad that like reviewers are giving it like 7s and stuff, and I'm like. That's what
that
this
might
game
be a little
is.
generous.
I mean, there's a couple of places give it like 4 out of 4.5.
That's too low.
A little low, but it's a strictly mid-range. Like this is like a B-list game that would come out on the PS2 while you were waiting for something bigger to come out. Like
the presentation's real low rent. Like the cinematics are.
Yeah, it does everything
2D.
It's trying to do. It accomplishes its goals and no further. It's completely competent. What you see is what you get. The story is good enough to get by. The combat is good enough to get by. Like, there's enough to do in each level that you can probably keep your interest. There's collectible things that, like, add world-building stuff that's somewhat interesting. There's a couple little puzzles. Like, the allies you get help you, like, do world puzzles. So there's reasons to visit old areas because then you can open up stuff you couldn't get to before.
Because, like, first guy can break boulders that, like, stand in your way.
Another guy can create, like, bridges. And things. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yep. Maybe it's not $70 fine.
Yeah. But Magic system is a lot like the party system. Instead of holding R1, you hold R2.
Yeah.
And then your magic spells correspond to the 4 face buttons. And their cooldowns are very quick.
Yeah, you can use that.
You can just spam magic for the most part.
Because there's no cooldown on them. The cooldown is those little squares on the bottom, little diamonds on the bottom. Like, and those refill with combos. Mm-hmm. So, and some of it refills based on time, but also combos that your allies do.
Yep.
So once you get like 5 or 6 of those things, like you can basically fire off whatever you want.
Yep.
And especially because the allies summons work on a different bar, work on the blue bar under the life bar. So you've got a lot of tools at your disposal. And of course, if you use the right element of magic, you can stun. It's called crushing, but you stun enemies. So like if you get a group, you're like, if you know what they're weak to, you just hit them with something that chains across them all, and you don't have to worry about half of them because they're all stunned for a while. Like it's the systems work. Like they're there. It's just.
And they're not overly complicated either. Like listening to us talk about it, I think it sounds more complicated than it really is.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, what you're seeing is what you get here. I mean, you can knock the tail off that dragon, get a few extra items out of it.
But it doesn't matter.
Not really. The other thing that I thought was weird is how much of it is nonsense. Like, you can only carry so many like elixirs and so now at a certain point there's almost no reason to open treasure chests because most of the time you're going to open them, it's like you can't carry anymore.
You can't take anything. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, then what am I even fucking doing? And then
plus you have a magic spell that heals you better than any of the elixirs.
And you get penalized at the end of the level if you use items.
Right.
So there's like triple reason not to use them.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, like that's weird. There's like if you upgrade the weapons with crystals and stuff, and that ups their defense and attack value and stuff, so that makes them more powerful. And
that happens in a weird place in like a pause screen.
Yeah, that happens in at the save points.
It's so weird.
But like that's important, but there's only 6 weapon types, so you kind of got. And the other weird thing about that is, so there's the upgrading, and then there's also the affinity. So the more you use a weapon, the more you'll get an affinity for it. It'll raise from like level, grade G all the way up to like grade S. G. And I got like the sword you start with. I got that up to, I think that was up to like grade A. And there's a point at which I'm like, what does that do? I like to know what, because maybe I should try another weapon and see what that is. Because I got a spear. I'm like, should try that. Should I not jump off the affinity till I max it? And I looked it up on the Reddit, and they're like, oh, affinity doesn't actually do anything. It just tells you how much you've used each weapon.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
just informational.
Why is that there? That, like, it's so weird. Like, okay, sure.
This game makes a pretty good first impression.
Yeah.
But again, the more I played it, the less I enjoyed it, because it does start to get very repetitive. Like,
because you've seen all of its tricks.
Yeah, you have.
Early on.
There's a square and a triangle. Like, the combos never get all that complicated.
And it all looks like it's like you're constantly waiting for the sun to come out.
Yeah. It's always overcast, gray sky.
I mean, I guess it's Ragnarok, so it's...
Yeah, I guess it makes sense.
It's a gloomy day in Valhalla. But, like, yeah, that's about it. And the bosses are interesting. You know, the bosses are, like, you know, a couple of tricks, and you're like, oh, I get it. I mean, when I fought this guy, I don't think he even touched me.
Yeah.
Especially if you know what the element they're vulnerable to, you hit them a couple times and they'll get stunned.
They're crushed.
And then if you hit them again with the same element, they get immobilized. And like, there's a couple bosses I was able to take half their life off before they could even move.
You can just unload. Yeah.
Which is kind of satisfying early on, but after a while you're like, okay, this is just how this works, I guess.
Yeah. I didn't feel like this ever really put up much of a fight. The only time I died was when I just stopped paying attention.
I get dumb and think I could kill anything because for most of the time you can. Most of the time it's like, oh, it's 20 dudes. Like, you're all gonna die in 3 hits anyway. I don't care. You know, like it's. I fell asleep once playing this game. Yeah. So that should tell you whatever you need to know there, I think.
How do you feel about this in general, Matt? Because this is a franchise that I feel like a lot of people had waited a long time for it to be revived, and then Square Enix does revive it, and they do it, and I hate to say this, but in kind of a half-assed way.
Yeah,
like what I was saying earlier, the cinematics in this are really bare bones. They're either these 2D, like...
Yeah, I would not, if you didn't tell me this was part of the Valkyrie profile series, I would not pick it out as that, other than the fact that you were playing a Valkyrie. To be honest, one of the most interesting things about this game to me was that it was going to come with the remaster of Valkyrie Profile Lenneth, which is the PSP remake of the original game, and then that got delayed to December.
Right.
So I'm just stuck playing this now.
I'm assuming we just get a free download for that when it comes out?
Yeah, it'll just become a free download. Yeah, it'll just be a download.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll probably be a separate, I think it's going to be a separate game, but it'll just be counted as owned by you when it comes out, and anyone who doesn't.
So it'll already be in your library.
Yeah,
and you just
so you'll be able to purchase that separately.
It's weird. Like, that just doesn't really happen. Where you buy a game and it comes with another game and then it shows up later.
That happens. It's just DLC, really. But, like, I definitely think that happened for something else, but I can't remember what it was.
Not very common, though.
I mean, it's basically what would happen with, like, episodes of things when you bought the season
that's a good
pass.
way. That's a good analogy, actually.
But that is a better game than this, so...
Swanland asked, do you think this game would be a lot better if all the stuff they gave you for combat was necessary to survive?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think most games are that way, where the best games are the ones that force you to make use of all the mechanics that they've given you to play the game.
I just don't think it's designed well enough for that to be in play. Like the enemy's animations, the enemy's movement and stuff, it's just too muddy to really, and like everything's very like I was shocked to look in the little like the database thing on this and realize that there's like 3 times as many enemy types as I thought there were, because I was just like, okay, zombie soldiers, but I guess like 5 of those kinds.
Yeah,
but I'm like, I thought they were all the same thing because they're so indistinct.
They look the same.
Yeah,
because you're fighting very fast, you can't see all the details in the character models. The other thing we should say too, the way this game is structured is you go to Odin. He gives you a mission. You go to this warp pad. You warp out. You play the mission. You finish the mission. You warp back to Odin.
Yeah. And then you warp. But you visit each area 2 or 3 times for different missions, and it's the same exact area every time. It's just hope you like repeating the location.
And I didn't find that's not even counting like going travel. Did you?
No.
Yeah. Which is weird. If they're gonna make you keep going back,
like some of the missions start you in different parts of the level. That's the other thing. Is like you can find. Like you can go back to Valhalla whenever you want.
Yeah.
Like, so you don't have to finish the level every time, but like you can find these like glowing wisps that are like the souls of people, and they like have side quests for you, and they're like, I don't, these monsters are a thing. I find my mother's ring, but you can't do them in the level you're in. You have to finish the level or leave the level and then go into the map screen selection and switch to the side quest panel and then specifically choose that side quest to jump into that area to do, and you'll end up in a different part of the area with that side quest active and the other quest not active. So that's all separate from it's very weird.
It's a side effect of the way the game is designed. Basically.
Yeah, but like you find a side quest, you can't do it. Then you have to go back to base and it's almost like Metal Gear Solid 5. You can't do anything. You have to go back to base and then specifically set out to do that thing.
Yep.
Which feels like padding.
Yeah, it's weird. It's goofy.
And those side quests, you can finish them in like 6 minutes or something. It's very quick. Most of them are very quick. Take place in very small chunks of the level. And it's just like, okay. And then what? And then you get like 10 gems for them or something. It's like nothing. The rewards are nothing.
No.
Like even with this, like you can get like sometimes you open treasure chests. It's like you got 10 violet gems. I can get 10 violet gems from every barrel over there.
Just smashing a box.
Like I got like 40 from like just like knocking over a crate. Like
I actually kind of stopped. I stopped opening all the chests after a while.
Well, yeah, because I'm full of all the items and the crystals. Like I get more from smashing the debris than I get from opening. It's very strange.
Yeah, and again, I think people can watch this B-roll and think this game is better than it is because you're watching a very small portion of the game. But what you're seeing right now is what you do forever. It just goes on.
Yeah, right down to these like kill all the enemies. You get a slightly longer than you want cutscene of the door opening.
That's a good way to put it. Yep. But I mean, what would you spend for this game? What would you be okay paying for this game, Matt?
I think it's a good like 30 to 40.
$40, I think, is what this game should have been priced. I would feel more comfortable paying 30 for it, but I think if they wanted it to do well at retail, if they had set it at 40, also, they'd generate more revenue than
one of the most boring skill trees I have ever seen.
Yeah.
Just you're literally it's just the most pedestrian upgrades.
So you were saying when I was talking about this that you think there's going to be more than what's here.
There were more to the skill trees than there was shown in the demo. That's all. Like,
but they're still very rudimentary.
No, it's very linear with a couple branches. But in the demo, you only get to go down to like, I think it's like the 5th or 6th skill level, and it's like double that in the main game.
Yeah, still not very big though.
Because when you get all this, I got all the skills in the demo, and it listed all 3 trees as being 20% complete, and that's about right. But like, you're also locked out of everything. You know, they lock you out of the weapon upgrades or the skill upgrades they don't want you to have yet by having them require specific gems that only drop in certain areas. So, like, until you get to that area, you're not going to have an Azure gem or whatever. And so that's how you can't do that until you go to that level. So the progression kind of, you progress when you get to a new area. You can then afford all these new upgrades, but almost immediately because you get so many resources so fast. And then you can do nothing upgrade-wise for, like, another hour.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yep. Ashes in the Hourglass says, when people say they want more AA games, this isn't what we meant. I actually think this is what we meant.
I mean, this is what that is.
But I just think that it's not priced like a AA game.
Yeah.
Like, this is the type of game we're talking about.
Yeah, this is literally, it's entirely competent, it would be a B-list PlayStation 2 game back in the day. It would be, it'd be a Valkyrie profile game.
Well, back then, those games could sell 800,000, 1 million copies and turn a nice profit, and that would be fine. But charging full price for this, that's a tough ask, and it's wrong if you ask me. So I would not buy this at full price.
In terms of what they spent to make it, it probably is about right.
Here's a side quest that Matt was talking about.
Yeah. So you talk to this glowing fountain, and then that's it. Like
that's it. It's like, then you go off and do whatever they ask you to do. There's not a lot of pomp and circumstance in the side quest.
A very empty world. Like it's another kind of the Dark Souls style. Everything already happened, sort of thing.
Yeah,
and you just run into a couple people here and there.
The stragglers, until you get into towns.
Maybe that's why it looks like that. They're trying to emulate like the From look, and it's just not really getting there.
Yeah, maybe.
She also runs like Naruto, which is weird. Like she runs her arms behind her.
Yeah, it's
apparently
weird.
That's supposed to be like she's flying because she's a Valkyrie, but I'm like, it just looks like she's an anime dork.
The camera's always too low too. I mean, I don't know if they're trying to make you think you can look up her skirt or whatever. I don't know, but I always feel like I'm looking down or up at her from behind whenever she's running at high speeds. But that's just small stuff. Nitpicky stuff, but in general, I think it's a solid game, but unremarkable. I think people who buy this at full price because of its pedigree are going to be disappointed, and I would wait until it drops to at least $40 before taking the plunge.
Yeah.
You agree with most of that?
Yeah. It's fine.
Yep, but that's Valkyrie Elysium. Again, it's available for only PC and PlayStation. It's a PlayStation console exclusive for now. My guess is when it doesn't sell very well on PlayStation, they'll release it for Xbox and Switch. You could definitely run that game on Switch.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah,
I might need to tone down some of the magic effects, but like
cut down the enemy count or whatever. You can get it to work, but
unfortunately, you would be adding a fair amount of load time.
Yeah,
which is a problem because you have to jump between areas.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point.
I mean, Switch owners are kind of used to that.
Yep, they are. Yep. So there you go. That's Valkyrie Elysium. Next up, and our final topic for today's episode is another JRPG. This is the JRPG episode of GameFace, and my week has been filled with JRPGs.
The JRPG also ran episode.
Yeah, and this is the DioField Chronicle. So I played 3 JRPGs this week. I played Star Ocean, I played Valkyrie Elysium, and I played the DioField Chronicle. And the best of all 3 of those games is DioField Chronicle. So we have discussed this on GameFace a few weeks ago. Matt had played it. I had not played it at all, so he kind of led the discussion. I have now jumped into DioField Chronicle, and I've played a ton of it, and I really like it. Presentation also a little low rent in this. A lot of the cinematics are just like 2D, or if they have if they do use like the in-engine visuals, it's just like, hey, here's 4 people standing here, here's 2 people standing here. We're going to cut back and forth on the camera angles between that, and we're going to run the voiceover. And that's pretty much the extent of the presentation in this.
Yeah, when they're not doing that thing where, like, the voiceover is just going to be a weird snippet of flavor tone and not what you're saying in the text. So the text says something completely different, but the voiceover is like, do you think so?
Yeah.
Or like, it's like, sometimes it matches what the text says and sometimes not. Like, it's just like supposed to be sort of a, this is how they're saying this line thing, and sometimes it just doesn't match. It's very weird.
Yeah.
But the world building and the story in this is way more interesting than anything Valkyrie Elysium's doing. Like there's some Fire Emblem.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. I will say this though: the story in this is pretty dry, and they use like a lot of Square Enix JRPGs lately have like the hard English language, and this uses the verbiage from that era as well. The story's okay. Like, you're basically just mercenaries. And, like, you come across this stagecoach robbery. And
you're mercenary. They don't come across it. They plan for it.
Right.
They're the whole idea, because they're mercenaries, but they're the former friends and guard of the murdered prince from years ago, and their whole plan is to get into this mercenary camp that works for like the authorities and get access to all this shit, figure out who overthrew the king and assassinated the prince, and take revenge.
Yeah.
But they're playing the long game.
This game plays the long game.
Yeah.
There's no denying it. The plot moves slow, and it's full of politics.
Yeah,
so
there's times when things will pop up, and you're like, oh, right, that was like 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Like, we're doing that. Right, I remember. Yeah. Even stuff that pops up, like where you're like, oh, can you do this? Yeah, we'll do this. And like 2 missions later, they're like, oh, you remember that thing you want? I'm like, no, I don't.
Yeah, I don't remember it. Because it does all kind of bleed together.
Yeah.
Because it's like they start talking about these territories that I don't know where they are or what they're talking about. They start talking about these people that I'm not familiar with yet. Like, it just...
There's a rough, like, you know, you're in England.
Yeah.
And the mainland, they're worried about the mainland coming to conquer them at some point because there's a big war going on between very thinly disguised versions of France and Germany. Mm-hmm. And now that everybody's running out of the resource whose name I can't remember that like lets you cast magic and stuff.
No, I don't remember either, actually.
But the British Isle equivalent here has tons of it. Mm-hmm. So now both warring factions on the mainland, not Europe mainland, are sort of looking towards, hey, we should invade that island nation and take all those resources so we can beat the other faction. Mm-hmm. And so what you're doing with the mercenaries is you're trying to establish a way to fight off these like early scouting bands of both of these sides that are sort of trying to see how they could invade your land. In the meantime, also trying to figure. So you're kind of in this weird position where you're trying to defend the land on behalf of the ruling powers that overthrew the previous ruling power, which was what you were working for, and murdered your friend.
And they don't figure it out.
Yeah.
They're completely clueless.
Yeah, they don't really seem to understand the bigger picture because they've been living in the woods for 15 years.
Right.
So, yeah, it's there's a lot happening. There clearly
it's political intrigue.
There's a lot of Game of Thrones influence and like like that kind of thing.
But the story's not told in an overly elaborate way. It's pretty rudimentary. This is another game that probably shouldn't sell at full price. What I love about this is playing it. It is kind of a RTS MMO-ish.
Oh, it's absolutely an RTS
style of combat.
It's Fire Emblem as an RTS. Basically.
And you have, I mean, what was the most amount of units you ever had at once to command?
I think 4 or 5. I mean,
4 is the most I ever had.
4, and then like you can get like allies from the specific mission. Like I like escort people, or I had like a team up with someone that made it 5, but I couldn't control them.
Well, there's also this weird thing where like you can team up a main character with like a sub character.
Right. If you have more characters than 4, you can like have them be like kind of vanguard with the other character, and like you can still use one of their abilities and they still level up slower. But
I like that.
Yeah, it keeps them on the field. They say stuff. It feels like they're involved. If there's a character that I don't need because their class is redundant, I can still team them up and still use both of their actions. You know, it works.
My biggest issue with this, the biggest problem I've had with this game, other than the story being a little dry, is controlling it with a controller can be unwieldy.
It's not ideal.
No, and it's way too sensitive. So basically how it works is all your characters have auto attacks, and you can click on an enemy and they will go and auto attack that enemy. And then they also have the special attacks, and as you play the game they get more, and you have to decide which ones you want to keep and which ones you get rid of or whatever. But sometimes you have to aim these attacks, like the paladin, the guy who rides the horse, like he does this like force push, and you choose it, and then a little arrow pops up and you have to aim it. The aiming for that stuff is really finicky. Like,
it does try to kind of like stick to enemies to help, but sometimes that's less intuitive than just letting me aim it.
Yep.
So.
And this stuff, you got to realize, all this stuff is happening in real time. So the enemies never stop attacking. They never stop advancing. Like, there's no pause in the game. So while you're choosing what you're doing, everything else is still happening in real time. It's real-time strategy.
Also, who knew? I don't know why they soundproofed the war room.
Oh, right.
But that was interesting.
So anyway, you basically, the combat's happening at all times. And so if you are having problems either selecting your unit or selecting the enemy that you want your unit to go attack, or if you're having problems aiming one of your attacks because it's really touchy.
Well, you can pause and switch between units for things with like the ability screen and stuff, like, which I did that a lot. I don't know. I went back to this briefly because I played the demo a fair amount. And then I went back to this for a while, and then I hit some missions that I found annoying and didn't really go back to it.
That's exactly what happened to me. So I got to an escort mission, Matt, where there's this person that has a cart, and you're trying to follow the cart through the map. And up until that point, this game, I wouldn't say it was a cakewalk, but it was pretty easy. And I got to that mission, and it was just like impossible. I played it like 5 or 6 times, and that's where I stalled.
Yeah, I did.
Every time I found a way to get past what killed the cart, something else would kill the cart. And I got to like the 5th time, and I was like, screw this. Like, who was the one that balanced this game and stuck this mission in here? Like, it's completely out of, like, whack with the rest of the game.
I got through that one. That only took me a couple tries, but I think I'd been grinding on the demo longer than you had.
So your character could take down the enemies more quickly. I was able to kill the guys
attacking the cart faster.
Right. Right.
But then after that was pretty much where I stopped too. Because after I finished that, I hit that point that you do in some of these games where you're like, I don't want to go through this again. I didn't go and get the next mission basically because I was like, I'll come back later, and I haven't come back later yet.
Yeah,
I will because I do like it.
I literally played that mission like 5 times and couldn't get past it, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go play some more Valkyrie Elysium or whatever. And I never ended up.
The solution to that is probably to go back to the other war table, and like replay older missions and level up a little bit.
Okay.
Which sucks, but
a lot like
there are usually treasures and things you haven't gotten in the previous thing because it's hard to get everything in one go.
It is, yeah.
So that's you go back and pick up some new equipment or something.
Yeah. Also, like Valkyrie Elysium, this game is kind of like one of those games where you go out, you do your mission, you come back to a base, and in this case, the base is like this mansion or whatever that you go back to.
I mean, I have less reticence about that with like this kind of game, like, because
agreed.
It feels appropriate to the theme.
And
Valkyrie Elysium is just like, why don't you just let me go there?
Well, the other thing too about this is that the home base evolves. Right. So as you play, you unlock new merchants, you unlock new abilities to upgrade your equipment or your spells or whatever.
There's relationships with the different characters that happen in there.
There's a lot more. It's a lot more worthwhile. There's a lot more context to it. How do you like the diorama kind of style of things that are in this game? Where
it works.
Sure, like the war table and like.
I do think it's interesting that like they have like a hollow table. They even commented on it. It's like, oh, it's so high tech. And it's like
for everything else. It's
is it magic? Is it technology? Because otherwise, it's basically like medieval fantasy. But they have like a hologram table. It's interesting.
These characters also look like dolls, by the way.
Yeah, but you're looking at them so far away, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
like they look like dolls because they're basically miniatures.
They are. It's like that little aesthetic that goes throughout the whole game.
Also, I made the mistake early on of thinking the horse was the tank.
Oh,
it is not.
No, it's not.
He is the flanker. Like, do not have him soak damage.
Yeah, or I send him to do stuff like this. Yeah, I'll send him to open up like a chest or to hit a waypoint or something like that because he's fast.
I just send him around the back and whack him in the head.
That works too. But as far as like once you're in the missions, like they're basically linear. As Matt said, there's a bunch of stuff in the levels that like you either have to decide whether you want to take the risk in trying to go get it or screw it and just push your party to finish the mission instead. So it's like some risk and reward with some of the things in the levels. Those towers that you just saw us take over, typically that just basically makes a bridge go down, or they're just switches basically. And that's another part of the strategy is, should I go for the tower to try to take over the tower and commandeer it and then flip the switch inside it to, change the environment so I can move forward, or should I stay here and fight these guys? There's a lot that plays into it. So you can see at the bottom there, you can switch through in this game as well. You can swap through your characters whenever you want. You can choose whichever one you want to control. You can even just put your cursor over them and then tap like the X button to take control of them. And then you can control everyone in your party individually. If you hold L2, you can control all of them at once and send them all in the same direction to move someplace together. Or you can choose that they attack all the same enemy. There's strategy in how you take down enemies, because some enemies in the game, if they're sub-bosses, if you take them out, all their minions die. So when you get to some parts of the game, it can become a little more challenging. One thing you should look at is like, okay, maybe I should take out the leader first, because a lot of times when you do that, all the minions are gone, and it makes it easier to just use that L2, send all 4 of your party members after that one enemy, and just hope that they can hold on while the minions hack away at them while they're trying to take out the sub-boss. There's a lot of strategy to the game. I really enjoyed playing this game, both mentally and the actual mechanics of it. But yeah, you can cycle through your party at all times. You're always wanting to find the guy who has his cooldown is finished and they can now use their special attack. I haven't seen a lot in the way of team attacks, Matt, where like your one attack from one party member works with the attack of another party member to create a more powerful one. Have you seen anything like that?
No, most of it's like kind of tank and spank stuff. You want to attract attention and then allow the other characters to go around to the side or behind. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of bonuses for where you hit someone from somewhere.
Yep. And there's a bunch of systems you're seeing now. The footage you're seeing is from back at the home base after you finish a mission. You come back here and there's all these things that you can upgrade and change. Here's the skill tree with unit types. The skill trees are pretty extensive. This is just one out of like 5 of them or whatever that you're seeing right now. You can tap the shoulder buttons and it'll cycle through all the different trees. I made the mistake of, the first time I went to the tree, I made the mistake of acquiring skills for a party member I did not even have yet. I thought that like all the abilities would transfer over, but that I don't think was the case. I think I need that specific party member to use this stuff that I'm unlocking.
There's one of the job types you do not have initially, but you get the other job type pretty fast.
Yeah, and I was an idiot, and I chose the upgrade for the job that I didn't have yet. Can you respec this stuff? I never noticed actually.
I never looked.
Yeah. And I thought I meant to do that, but then I got to that one mission where I tried it over and over and couldn't beat it, and I just kind of gave up in a huff and never went back. Here's what we were talking about earlier, where you can kind of assign a sidekick to each of your main characters. This is also where you choose exactly who is in your party versus who's sitting out for each mission. Anything else that we should mention about it?
I think that covers it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Like the combat does get. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna.
It does also start to get a little repetitive after a while.
Yeah, but like if you like that, it's also kind of like what else is there like this?
Yeah. What else is like this, and how else do you do it? Yeah. Like how do you make it deeper than what they? No one's figured that out yet.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the way you make it deeper is you make it for PC and don't have to worry about people using a
controller. Yeah.
But I think for something that has to work on controller, they've done about as good as they can do.
Yeah. There are also summons in the game.
Yeah.
So after you build up
Final Fantasy summons, there's Bahamut and everybody.
Yeah, there's Bahamut, and then the second one I got was like a health boost. It wasn't even like an attack, like my second one. So I haven't used him very much, but Bahamut's the first one that you get, and I think he's in this footage here shortly. But they're elaborate, like crazy, over-the-top attacks, just like you would expect from summons in a Final Fantasy game. They happen in real time, though.
Yeah, if you called this like Final Fantasy Tactics RTS, like I would have believed you.
I would, if this had been called Final Fantasy whatever, I'd have been like, all right, I can see that totally. Because one Final Fantasy game to the next isn't always all that similar either. So I've learned over time to have a kind of an open mind with what is or isn't a Final Fantasy video game. But I had a ton of fun with this, again, until I hit that one mission that just, like, flummoxed me, and I just kind of lost all my momentum. But, again, of the 3 JRPGs that I played this week, Star Ocean, Valkyrie Elysium, and DioField Chronicle was my favorite. Did you like this more than Valkyrie Elysium?
Yeah.
Yeah?
This is definitely a better game.
Yeah, I agree. This caught me off guard and by surprise. I'm glad I gave it a whirl. Because you had talked about it before, and I didn't need to. I was like, oh, Matt can talk about it again. I'm sure because you said you were going to play it again once it came out.
Yeah.
But I just gave this a whirl out of curiosity, and I got hooked very quickly. And you can see here, eventually, zombies become a part of the game, because...
Of
course they do.
If it's in Game of Thrones, it's in this.
Yeah.
Except the incest. I haven't seen the incest.
Not yet.
Waiting now.
Give it some time.
It's an epic tale. They got some time.
ETH Demon says, yes, you can respec. It costs $10K. And money does not come easy in this. So that's a lot of money to respec, but at least you can. But I've had a lot of fun with this game. I think it's a solid game. Again, the presentation's a little weak. The story's a little dry.
But it is doing something different.
It is. So. I haven't played a game like this maybe ever.
Yeah, I mean...
Similar games I've played, but...
I can think of a couple. Like there's... there's a little bit of Dragon Force in this. There's a little bit of Langrisser in it.
Yep, Langrisser, for sure.
It's unique, certainly for now. Yeah. For the time.
Yeah. I've had a lot of fun. It's a shame that there's that one mission. I'm sure everybody's going to hit it and say the same thing. It's just annoying. It's one of those things where you keep eliminating the issue, and then another issue pops up the next time you run through. And then you eliminate that one, and then another issue pops up. And I just got sick of it. I was like, dude, this is the 5th time some other group of enemies has just appeared out of nowhere and destroyed the damn cart. And I was like, I'm done. And I moved on. And I didn't go back after that. But I had a lot of fun playing this game up until I got to that point. And maybe you're lucky and your build or your characters, your party or whatever is different, and it's easier for you to get through that. And you're like, what the hell is Shane talking about? But that one mission really threw me a curveball, and it put me off of the game, and I have not gone back to play it more yet. But I might, because these first couple weeks of October are not great. And then the last 2 weeks of October are out of control. Anything else you want to add about this before we
not really
call it?
No,
Would you buy this at full price?
I did. Even after the demo.
Even after the demo. So, yeah. I mean, Square Enix sent me this. Would I be happy if I paid $60 for it? It appears to be a really big game.
Yeah, it seems lengthy.
I think if you like it, you're probably going to get your money's worth. Mm-hmm. So there is some questionable balancing in mission difficulty, but probably if you get over that hump, it probably goes right back to smooth sailing for a while again. And then when you come up with your next escort mission, you'll have a better idea of how to handle it, and you could probably get through it more quickly than the first one. $60, a little bit of a stretch for me for this game. I'd feel better if it was $50. I'd feel really good if it was $40. If it was $40, I'd be shouting from the rooftops for everybody to go and buy this game. $60, it's hard for me to recommend it for people to buy unless you have a predilection for these types of games. And if that's the case, you're probably a hardcore PC gamer, and you probably have stuff that's way better than this anyway, honestly. But you're right. It is kind of like Final Fantasy RTS a little bit. Mm-hmm. That works on a console for the most part. There are some...
It's good enough.
It's good enough. That's a good way to put it. There are some moments where I'm like, damn it, I can't quite get exactly what I want.
Early on, I had a lot of trouble sort of like remembering which which button selected things in the pause screen and which button unpaused it.
Yeah.
That happened a lot.
Yeah, you're right. That did happen to me a lot, too. And I was like, that's just me. And as it turns out, it wasn't just me. Swanland says it's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle water level of strategy games. A little bit, yeah. Yep. Swanland says maybe it'll come to Game Pass. Maybe, but I wouldn't. It'll probably be a while. Otherwise, they would have signed up for it already.
A solid Game Pass get, though.
This would be a great Game Pass get. This is the perfect type of game that you want for Game Pass. I think I'm about to fire off. Yep, here comes the summon. So we'll finish this segment off with the summon, the Bahamut.
The judge.
Yep. Yep, and there you go.
Yeah, even the same kind of square battlefield pullout like in Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yep. There you go. Mission clear. So that's the DioField Chronicle, not Chronicles, and there is a the before DioField. It is available for everything, even Switch, which is not a surprise because it's not really graphically intensive. And it would be a great game to take on the go with you as well.
Although you'd be squinting.
You would be, yeah, because the units are already pretty small, even on a TV screen.
But if you can use the touch, I don't know if you can use the touch screen to control it. That would be pretty good.
That would be good. That would be a better way to play it for sure. And I played the PS5 version. I didn't play the Switch version, so I do not know if the touchscreen works.
Yeah,
like
the PS. I think it's is that the PS5 version, the Xbox. I can't remember.
Yeah, but you didn't play the Switch version.
I did not.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we can't help you with that as to whether the Switch screen works for this. But I do think it's a good game because you can kind of just pause it, put it in your pocket, and come back and pick right up and hit the ground running. So typically, that's kind of what I look for when I decide whether I want to buy a game for Switch or I want to buy it for one of the other platforms. Am I going to want to play this on the go? And usually the answer to that is
no.
No.
Yeah, mine is always like, is this only available on the Switch? Yes. Okay. That's how.
Minority.
That's how you get me to buy Radiant Silvergun after you put it back up on the store after pulling it for a few days.
Yeah. Yep. Minority Games is no, it's not turn-based. But the way the game plays, it's like you don't need to remember a bunch of stuff that you just did to remember what to do next in this game. You can just go to home, which basically pauses it, and come back and pick up and just keep playing. So it will work fine as a Switch game if you want to play it in handheld mode. And that's it for our topics for today's episode, which brings us to some of your favorite parts of GameFace, which is... That's right, party people. It's time for Name That Game. It's a very simple game. I show you a collection of screenshots for a video game. You just try to guess the name of the video game. That's really all there is to it. You're playing against this guy. You need to beat him. You need to guess it first. You guys win all ties. So if in chat you guess it around the same time he does, you guys win. And if you win, you get a free video game. Now, just a couple things before we get going. Don't spam the name of the game because we put the chat into slow mode, which means you can only send a message once every 60 seconds. So make sure that your guesses count. It's very important. Also, if you have won this year, do not play. You can only win once per calendar year. So if you've won at any point prior in 2022, do not play. Do not give any hints. Don't ruin the game for everybody else who's playing and trying to win. And I think that's it. Are you ready, Matt?
Sure.
My prediction this time is we will make it to image 3.
I got today's Guess the Game in 1, so we'll see.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Last episode I was surprised.
Those trees.
Last episode with Detroit, I was surprised that people got it with the 1. So I may be wrong again. But I think we'll make it to image 3. We'll see how it goes. Okay. Here comes the first image for Name That Game. Go. Gave you a bush. If you can figure out what game that bush comes from, you will win. Name that game. Peter Jackson's King Kong. No, but that's a good guess.
Solid.
Mellow Pintor, Elden Ring. No. I'm going to use Elden Ring sometime, though. I almost used it today because I was like, I want to see if people can actually pick it out. They love that game so much. Let's see if they can actually pick it out. Skyrim. No.
We already did Skyrim.
We did Skyrim already, but Mitchell may have missed the show. Everything Zen, no. Hellblade, no. Fallout New Vegas, no. Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2, no, but that's a good one. Good guess. Fallout, no.
Golden Axe Beast Rider.
Nope, but that's a good guess, too. Far Cry 6, no. Pikmin, no. Papa John's ad, no. Okay, I think we're ready for image number 2 of Name That Game. And here we go. I gave you a bag. Can you figure out what game that bag comes from?
It's a burlap sack, all right.
Oh, no guesses so far. There's Wampler's 50 Cent Blood in the Sand. Nope. Sneak King, no. From Danny Endurance. Cinetite, The Outer Worlds, no. I think we're going to make it to image 3. People aren't even guessing. Looks mildly Resident Evil, no. Witcher 3, no. Metro Exodus, no. Call of Duty World at War, that's a good one, no. That's a really good guess for that image. A Plague Tale, no. 2 people guessed that at once, both ETH Demon and Arbiter Zach. Not a Plague Tale. Okay. We're going to the 3rd image. I think this will be the one that gives it away. And here we go.
Oh.
Metal Gear Solid 5, no. Death Stranding, no.
Kind of looks like Dragon's Dogma.
LSD, no. That's not psychedelic enough for LSD. Wolfenstein 2, no. Demon Souls, no. Erevis Jones says he's got it. But I think he just won, so he can't guess. Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, no. Dragon Age Inquisition, no. But that's a good guess. Somebody already guessed Witcher 3, Xerxes. Cinetite gets it. Shadow of Mordor. Finally. I thought for sure that architecture would give it away right away. But it didn't. But we have our winner. Here's a round of applause for Cinetite. Good job, Cinetite. Do you see it now, Matt, or no?
Yeah, I mean, I see that it's some Mordor thing.
Yeah.
That stuff has been so influential, though, that it could be anything.
You're right. It's been repurposed by everybody else at this point. Yeah, you're totally right. But
like
Cinetite got it.
I do see the double line zip line thing now. Yeah, that's unique, kind of unique to that.
Vincent says, I've been playing through Shadow of Mordor for the past month or so, and I had no clue. That's crazy. I'm curious how you got it, Cinetite. I'm glad that Cinetite got it, by the way. He's one of our best supporters here on our live stream. He's here every week watching the show live. I love to see people like him win Name That Game. Congratulations again. Here are the last 2 images that I try to make more obvious so you guys will get them. Showed the feet and the sword.
Italian feet.
The sword is what I thought would give it away.
Orc feet?
It is. And that's also their swords.
Yeah.
I thought the sword would give it away, the orc sword. And then this would definitely give it away. The orc's head. Mm-hmm. And there you go. Congratulations once again, Cinetite, for winning. Send us a DM here on Twitch at Sifted Games. You can send me a DM on Twitter at Dinfire. You can send a DM to Sifted on Twitter at Sifted Games. You can get at me with a DM on Sifted at Shane. However you do it, just get in touch with me and we'll get out your free game. And congratulations once again. So I was right. I guessed the 3rd image, and that's exactly how you figured it out. Cinetite says, I got it from the catapult thingies and the battlements on the wall. Yep. I knew that would be the one that would give it up. I figured at the very least just the architecture of the building might give it up. But as you said, all that stuff has been like repurposed now, so you just don't even know like what game it could be coming from. But congratulations once again, Cinetite. Good to see that you won. All right, we got plenty of time to do some Q&A here. We'll answer more questions than normal if you guys have them. Just hit us up in the chat. Let's bring up the chat here. If you guys have any at all. Here's one from Ashes and Yarglass. Considering it was absent all year, including the latest state of play, do you think Spider-Man 2 will still make 2023? That's a good one.
Insomniac does tend to hit their goals.
Yep. I can't remember the last time Insomniac delayed a game.
No, didn't they
from when they actually announced the release date. Yeah, I think it did move up like a couple weeks or something. Yeah. Insomniac is really good about hitting its release dates, so I think probably it's going to hit it. Or at the very least, I feel like we probably would have heard something by now about some kind of a change in the release date or something like that. No, I think we're good. I think Spider-Man's going to be good to go for this year. Sneaky, Charlotte Snake. News just broke that Overwatch 2's launch has been ruined by Bellon's DDoSing it. How do you feel about these kinds of attacks? DDoS attacks? F off. It's the worst, man. Like, why do people do this? Everybody just wants everyone else to be as miserable as they are. That's really what it feels like a lot of the time. I feel like crap. I hate my life. I hate myself. I want you to feel just like me.
Yeah.
It's so sad. Like, I don't understand it.
In some cases, that's a whole political platform.
Yeah, that's pathetic, though. Why would someone do that to Overwatch 2? Like, why?
I don't know. Like,
or maybe it's...
Overwatch 2 has enough problems already.
Yeah. Blizzard, I mean, maybe that's why? They're getting back at Blizzard for that stuff?
They're mad that Blizzard got woke or something? Who knows?
Well, I mean, they're mad at Blizzard because Blizzard was letting women be harassed in the workplace. And...
Nah, that's not really the style of people.
Yeah,
like this.
You're right. Usually it's the opposite. Yeah. That sucks, and we hate it, and we're against it here at Sifted and GameFace. So those people can F off. So a lot of people waited a long time to play Overwatch 2 today. I'm one of them. We didn't get review code from Blizzard. We would have liked to have had it in today's show, but unfortunately we didn't get early code. So we'll be talking about Overwatch 2 in next week's episode. Justin Horman. So I've been pleasantly surprised. I'll bring you up on screen here. So I've been pleasantly surprised and enjoying Escape Academy on Game Pass lately. Can you remember any game you didn't buy and weren't watching and got access to it via Game Pass, PSN, or Games with Gold, but ended up enjoying your time playing it and it took you by surprise? I like how you did that with like my emoji with the hands. How do you do that?
I don't know. They do that all the time.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys are wizards of Twitch and Twitch chat. What about you, Matt?
Spiritfarer.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Power Wash Simulator.
Yeah, I guess Power Wash Simulator's up there.
I think that's the most obvious answer for everybody. Like, nobody would have played Power Wash Simulator if it weren't on Game Pass. No one's going to, like, plunk down money for that. But it's one of those things where it's like, I'll try it.
Sure, why not?
And then people started playing it, and they're like, weird, this kind of ticks one of my OCDs.
I think also, like, it wasn't for me because I was aware of it beforehand, but I think Tunic was that for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'd agree. People wouldn't have tried that, no way. But it's just sitting there, and it looks kind of cool. Give it a go. And, I mean, I also wonder, too, and I think we've talked about this before, about if developers are going to start developing their games differently for services like Game Pass, where it's kind of important on Game Pass if you get people hooked right away. So I do wonder if developers eventually may start adjusting how they develop their games to make sure that there's a hook right in the open to get people snared in so that they get that playtime, so they get more money from Microsoft or whatever company owns the services. So it'll be interesting to see how it impacts development, if it does at all. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody has at least a game or two that they got for free from any of these things, from Xbox Live, from PlayStation Plus, from Amazon Prime, which, by the way, I don't think a lot of people realize, if you help us out with Twitch Prime, you also get like 5 or 6 free games every month from Amazon Prime. There's just so many free games that are coming from all these different directions. Epic Game Store. I think everybody has at least 1 or 2 that they found that they're like, I never would have played this, and I got totally sucked into it and ended up really liking it. I mean, I can think of tons from PlayStation Plus games that, like, I may have had a passing interest in, ended up getting totally sucked into. Like, right from the beginning of the PS4 with Resogun. Would I have played that game on its own? Probably not. I ended up getting totally addicted to it and sucked into it. So I think that happens a lot. It's awesome. Minority Games. Is Bayonetta 3 considered the next level of stylish action beat-em-up genre? I think the jury's out. We'll have to wait and see.
We won't know that until we play it.
Yeah. I think it could be.
Maybe.
I don't know if fighting with kaiju is what's going to put it over the top, but
we'll see.
But it gives it a new angle at least. I'm excited for it, if that matters. I'm curious if you guys are. I'm also curious. I wonder what percentage of our audience and like our users on Sifted have a Switch.
I'd say most of them.
You think so?
I would think so.
I don't know. And I wonder what percentage of those that it's their like second console that they just have.
I'd say most people who own a Switch is their second console, but like the majority of people who play games own a Switch.
Yeah, seems like it. Lynn Jeff 99, thank you for Twitch Prime, man. That's awesome. We appreciate it. Eth Demon, what's your opinion of 343 switching Halo to the Unreal Engine? Thank God.
Yeah, whatever you got to do.
Thank God. What took so long? Like I saw some other announcement today about some other studio switching to Unreal, and I'm just like, why isn't everybody doing it? Mm-hmm. Why are you building your own engines? Why?
It's just not worth it anymore.
It's not worth it. You're never going to make an engine as good as Unreal. You're just not. Like, Naughty Dog, Insomniac, the lone exceptions, Rockstar maybe. Mm-hmm. At this point,
in terms of like the engines, like they've had things, or they have the tech sector to do it. You know, it's
the money.
Yeah,
but to invest.
Yeah, the money. They have the time. They have the expertise. They have the talent. They have the skills. Like, whereas, like, I mean, you could argue that 343 should be able to build their own engine and run Halo, but apparently they're not. So, let's go use the thing that works.
Yeah.
So you can focus on the content and make that good. For a change.
Yep, seems like it makes sense. Minority games. When will adult games be considered normal like ProbHub is? I don't know.
It's supposed to be Pornhub.
Oh. Is Pornhub considered normal?
I think it depends who you ask.
I don't even know what normal is anymore. It's so hard to figure out.
Adult games will be considered normal 20 years after VR catches on in the mainstream.
Yeah, a long time. And a lot of it depends on where you live as well. I mean, in Europe, like, for instance, last time I went on a trip to Europe, we got to Versailles, and we went into a bar, and there was hardcore porn playing on the TVs in the bar. Hardcore porn, penetration, whole nine.
But wasn't anime porn.
No, it was real. It was real humans having sex.
Because porn video games are not accepted, even in Germany.
Yeah. And that was in France, obviously. That would never happen here. You're never going to go into a bar in America and walk in and have hardcore porn with penetration playing like it's in a sports bar. I mean, in this bar in France, there was like 100 TVs, and all of them were playing hardcore porn. And that's never going to happen in America. So a lot of it depends on your culture. Culturally, so in France, I would argue Pornhub probably is normal. It's like whatever. In America, we still have this weird, Puritan undertones in our country that we just can't seem to shake for whatever reason. And so we're much slower on that stuff. But man, you can blow a guy's head up 55 times here, whereas in Germany, they turn the blood green. So, a lot of it is just culturally where you're at. So in America, if you're asking about America, it's going to be a long, long time before adult games. I mean, you got to realize there's 30% of our country that's trying to drag everybody back to 1950 right now or earlier. So that element is going to be in our country for a long time to come. And until those people are gone, that's never going to happen. That's just the truth. Okay, next question. Danny Endurance, are you still playing Splatoon 3? What did you choose to take on the island? I don't know what the second part of the question is. I'm not still playing Splatoon 3. I've already had to move on, and it just didn't catch my attention.
I imagine he's talking about whatever the next Splatfest was, where you had to pick a side or something.
Oh, I didn't even play the next Splatfest. So I have not really played it since I finished playing it for GameFace, because I've been playing JRPGs out the butt for the last week and a half, 2 weeks. So unfortunately, I have not continued to play it. But I know it will be a game that I do keep playing. It'll be that multiplayer game that I play here and there, off and on for the next couple years. I'm not going to just quit playing Splatoon 3, but it didn't snare me to keep me addicted to it right away, I guess is the best way I could put it. El Guapo 3385, what's your most anticipated horror survival game out of the main three? Callisto Protocol, RE4 Remake, or the Dead Space Remake? That's a good question. Callisto Protocol, RE4 Remake, or Dead Space Remake?
Pass.
Really? You can't pick one of those three?
Theoretically, it probably should be Resident Evil 4, but I need to know more about what they're doing with that remake before I can decide whether to be excited about it or not. I'm curious about the other two.
It's the Resident Evil 4 remake for me. Resident Evil 4 is one of my favorite games of all time. As
long as they don't screw it up.
Well, even if they butcher it, I want to see how they butcher it. I am excited for that game big time. I wouldn't be that excited for it if it were more of a straight remake like what we got with like RE2 and RE3. But the fact that they're like changing up the scenarios and like doing crazy stuff to this, I gotta see what they're doing to it. I may hate it when it's all said and done, but I gotta see it. I gotta see what they did. Good question. Slagathor, what's the worst game you had to play all the way through for the purpose of reviewing it?
I don't remember.
Just a slurry of games when I first started at GameSpot.
I don't remember half the things I reviewed. Recently I found like this old like flash drive that had like a folder with all the written like the web reviews I wrote for like over the course of like a bunch of years at G4.
Yeah.
And I didn't remember writing half of them. I'm like, I mean, I know they were me because I recognized my own writing, but I'm like, I don't remember even playing that game. Like it was like, it was such a treadmill that you just don't retain any of it after a while.
When I first got to GameSpot, I was the new guy. And so as a new guy, I got all the crap work that nobody else wanted. And it was 2000, so it was near the end of the PlayStation 1 life cycle, and things were starting to rev up for PlayStation 2. Everyone at GameSpot was doing previews for PS2 games, previewing the hardware, doing the same thing for GameCube and stuff like that. I was the guy that they stuck reviewing all the last-run PlayStation 1 games. So as the PlayStation 1 was winding down and being sent out to pasture, I was the person that they gave all the PlayStation 1 games to while they handled all the other stuff. And totally fair. I was the noob. That's how it works. But I played so many bad games that first 6 months I worked at GameSpot going through all those off. And I didn't care. Like, I just wanted to prove to them that I could review games and do it well. And so, like, I wasn't complaining at all. Like, I was a magazine editor. I was supposed to put EGM and OPM and tips and tricks up as websites. Like, I wasn't supposed to be working in editorial at all. So when it came to me and they're like, hey, here's Lego Rock Raiders, would you like to review it? I was like, F yeah. Like, I reviewed the crap out of Lego Rock Raiders.
Yeah, I did a lot of weird ones.
Because you just want to prove yourself.
Yeah, I guess if I'm thinking about the worst things, like Flogan Brothers.
No, from Dreamcast.
One of the worst things I've ever played in my entire life.
I thought that wasn't coming out. Like, a lot of people thought it was just
forever.
canceled.
It was years and years.
Yeah.
And fun fact, that's the first game Frank Welker did a voice in.
Oh, really?
Megatron, Fred from Scooby-Doo, like one of the most prolific voice actors in history, and the #1 box office movie star in the world in history, because he's done voices in so many things.
Yeah.
The first video game he ever did was Flogan Brothers. Absolute disaster. The Gundam game that the PS3 launched with.
That was bad.
That was really bad.
Yeah.
And the G.I. Joe. There was a G.I. Joe PS3 Xbox game that I reviewed that I also think I give a 1 or a 2 to.
Okay.
But I know that Flogan Brothers and that Gundam game were 1s out of 5.
Yep.
So those are the worst that come. I'm sure there were others, but those are the things that come. Flogan Brothers, God, I hated. Like, I wanted to give it a 0. Like, I hated that game so much.
Batman for GameCube.
Oh, the Dark Tomorrow, the Chemco thing. Yeah, that's the most awkward press event I've ever been to, because I was the only person who played the game.
Oh my God!
Because I was so new.
Dude, I couldn't even figure out how to like go up and down on his rope. Like, it was so
it was very
bad.
It was. I remember because it was like just one of those like weird press events in San Francisco where everybody just kind of went out to the thing and got free drinks.
Yeah.
And I was, I don't even full time for like 2 months, and I was like,
I'm here to play.
I'm gonna do the thing. And all the developers and PR people were around me because I was the only one playing the game. They're all asking me what I thought, and I'm like, this is really bad, but I don't know what to tell you. Like,
that game was
and the
so
PR
bad.
people knew, they knew.
Oh, yeah.
They absolutely knew, and they're like, thanks for
Natalie DeRosa was the head of PR on that game, and that game was big. Because when the GameCube was first announced, we're like, what? We're getting a 3D Batman game? And it's a GameCube exclusive? It was like, I can't even put it into words how big of a deal it was. People waiting and waiting and waiting. And then we finally go to that event, and we were like, oh my God.
Because there'd already been the animated one.
Right.
Vengeance, I think it was.
Which was like
fine.
It was fine, yeah.
But like this was like the Batman game you've been waiting for. It was like, they sold it as what would eventually Arkham Asylum would be.
Yeah. It was a 3D rendered Batman game. Fully rendered, like,
based
realistic
on comics,
looking.
Based on it was like taking all the stuff out of the Batman
so
lore.
bad.
Oh my God.
Great question, Slagathor.
Astoundingly bad.
Mitchell is alive. Jeff Kanata describes there's games that he's married to as games you always play in the background and throughout new releases. What games are you married to? I've talked about this all the time. Like, it's Call of Duty, Splatoon, I talk about it all the time. Games that like I play while I'm waiting for my wife to get ready to leave for dinner. When she says I'm going to be ready in 15 minutes, and at 15 minutes I sit down and start playing Call of Duty, and then a half hour later we leave. I have games like that. Do you?
No.
No.
No, I mean, I play older games, go back to them sometimes. Like, I mean, obviously, I'll probably play
Rocket League's another one.
Mass Effect more, a few more times in my life. But like, there's nothing that I go back to and play constantly.
They're usually multiplayer games, generally.
Yeah, I don't have any multiplayer games.
Yeah.
I mean, even fighting games, I don't play regularly enough to call them that.
It's a great question. Other people are saying Rock Band, Guitar Hero, WWE.
Man, I don't even have any. I keep thinking about dragging Rock Band out again, and then I was like thinking about setting all that stuff up, and I was like, I don't even know where half that stuff is anymore.
Yep. Here's another one from Mitchell is Alive. Do you ever question your enjoyment of a game because of FOMO? Do you regret ignoring FOMO or giving into it? I've questioned FOMO with From Software's games for years and years. I don't question my enjoyment of it. Like, I question why I don't enjoy it when everybody else does. And it always happens when a new From Software game comes out and everybody's really excited and having a great time, and I'm like Debbie Downer in the corner not having fun at all. So that happens to me every time with those games. What about you, Matt?
I don't really have that sort of thing with games. Like, in fact, everybody else going nuts over a game is like, I have to like fight to not dislike it.
Oh,
in response
it makes
to
you
that. It just makes me more skeptical.
Huh, interesting. Yeah, Bayonetta is not a sales darling, unfortunately, from Swanland. Nope, it's not. I mean, This is its last chance.
It never has been, so...
I mean, the first one sold pretty well.
But
Second one tanked.
Once it moved to Switch...
With Wii U.
Or Wii U, that's right. Once it moved to Nintendo, it was kind of the end of it.
This is its last chance, so I'll just say this right now to the people. If you want Bayonetta to continue, you better go buy Bayonetta 3.
Bayonetta's not going to continue.
You better go buy Bayonetta.
It's not going to. It's over.
No more Heroes.
Go get it. Go get 3. Play 3. You know, you got a solid trilogy there.
Yeah.
But like,
No More Heroes 3, probably the last in that line.
Yeah.
Suda51 came out this week and said, like, basically the fans have to, like, rise up or whatever. No. Like, they needed to rise up and buy the third game.
And also, nobody cares. I mean, it was fine, but like, it's increasingly clear that No More Heroes 1 was lightning in a bottle.
Well, No More Heroes
it was of a time, it was of a moment, and it's over.
It was a moment that somehow managed to linger on for years and years.
I mean, there's an element of just Suda didn't have a better idea for a while, I think.
Yeah. Drifter J, any game from last gen that needs a second chance, in your opinion, that maybe could benefit from a little more TLC? Let me think. Last gen. Well, the entire Wii U catalog.
Yeah.
And they did. They ended up getting the more love and the more TLC, and they ended up releasing in a better form on Switch. So, yeah, the whole Wii U catalog essentially falls under that category for me. Can you think of anything else? We're also in the position, you and I, where we pretty much only play the good stuff anymore. Like, we don't really have to play bad games anymore.
I don't know. Everything was more or less, I mean, everything was more or less pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the main stuff would be like PSVR 1 stuff.
Days Gone. That's maybe one.
Fuck Days Gone.
Just an example.
Days go away. You'd have to reinvent how that whole thing flowed to get my interest again. Like that. The problem with that game is that the first third or half of it is just stone dead boring.
It's bloat. Yeah, the whole game feels bloated to me.
And like you spend the first like hour trying to save a character that I wish would die.
Right.
So like, I don't. Beyond that, and plus like the inability to make that motorcycle get more than 4 inches to the gallon, just like fuck that game.
But again, that's something you could tweak to make it better, right?
I guess, but like the ship has sailed. Like I don't have any interest in revisiting that.
Okay. The Big Smoke 82. I had a Switch for 2 years and sold it. I got fed up waiting for Breath of the Wild 2. I may pick one up again next year, or maybe they will have unveiled a new model by then. It's possible.
They might.
It's possible.
Might have a Zelda Special Edition Switch you'll never be able to get because it sells out in 5 seconds.
Yeah. Kevy Ann's most anticipated game for 2023. Good lord.
Starfield.
Yeah, probably. There's so many. I don't even know where to begin.
Starfield, #1 with a bullet. Number 2 slot would be a longer discussion. But Starfield is absolutely the top.
Yeah, I mean, it has been a while since we played a new Bethesda RPG, so it's probably my top.
Yeah, even for Zelda's just more of a known quantity than what this... I mean, look, Starfield might be a fucking tire
disaster.
fire. Like, we don't know. Like, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's like we always say, like, most anticipated isn't best game.
Yeah.
It's like, what game can we not wait to learn more about? I think that might be it. Sneaky says, Splatoon ads are everywhere in Japan. It's a big deal here. I didn't know that you lived in Japan.
He's visiting. He's working.
He's still visiting.
He's working there. He's doing something there.
Gotcha. Okay.
We talked about that like weeks ago.
Gotcha. Our last one, Evil Oni 5. If 343 switches engines, wouldn't it be in their best interest to double down with id Tech, as it's already owned by Microsoft? I think everyone going to Unreal will stifle innovation with everyone using the same thing. That is possible, but the cost of building...
id Tech is so specific to what they make, though.
Yeah.
And we've already seen with Doom, and so like it didn't translate to multiplayer very well.
Yeah.
I think Unreal is the way to go there. I don't see how that's going to stifle anything.
I just know the best games, the best looking games that I've seen are all Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah. And there's no stifling really there. Like usually if you go to Epic and you're like, we'd like to be able to do this, Epic's like, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Like they're very open to like adding on to the engine and doing new things. They're great partners to work with, for sure.
I'm
one of the biggest pessimists in the industry about Halo at this point, probably, but like that's a positive development to me.
Also, I don't think that this isn't like the OG Unreal Engine, where everything that was built on that engine did look kind of the same.
Yeah, this isn't like Unreal 3 where nobody can do hair right.
Yeah,
and stuff
like Unreal Engine has evolved a ton.
And we
since
haven't
then.
seen. I mean, look at that Matrix thing,
right?
And now think about what it's going to be like next year and the year ahead.
Yeah, art style now can
do whatever
make your game look
want
completely different from someone else's on Unreal. Now there are some effects that lazy studios will use out of the box.
Yeah, you're going to see some canned stuff in there, but I don't think you're going to see that from Halo.
Yeah, I think lower budget games, you'll see some of that samey stuff, but I think with studios with a real budget.
It's not like the Source engine where like you can just see a screenshot and you're like, that's Half-Life.
Yep.
Where
they all look the same. And a lot of that is like texturing and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's just a certain way they process stuff. I mean, I even noticed that the thing that looked the most familiar to me in the third Shadow Mordor screenshot was the fire.
Yeah.
Like the explosion or fire down there was like, okay, yeah, I know that. I know. As soon as you said Shadow Mortar, I'm like, yeah, that's what that is. And I think that was Unreal.
Yeah.
But there's just they designed those explosions in Shadow Mortar. There's a certain look to it.
Also, id Tech sucks. So I don't know why you'd want to build anything on id Tech.
id Tech does Doom real well.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't want to run something, especially something that's so multiplayer focused in the way that Halo is.
Yep.
No.
It's not like it was back in the Gears of War days, where every game looked like Gears of War. It's just not how the Unreal Engine works anymore, or any engine really, for that matter. So I'm not worried about that at all. And I do hope that everybody gets on Unreal so they can spend less time just getting stuff up and running, and they can spend more time just working on making their game unique and more creative. And that's what I believe middleware, if you want to still call it that in 2022, I believe that's the big advantage of middleware, is taking all the time out of game development, just getting your engine running or just building an engine and allowing you to spend your time working on making the actual game better. So that's why I call for everyone to work on Unreal if they can. Mm-hmm. Or Unity. If they would rather work on Unity, that's cool too, because the tools there are also great at this point. Anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay. That's it for GameFace episode 317. Thanks to everybody. Again, I want to apologize about last week, but it was kind of a medical emergency, and as it turns out, it kind of is now a medical emergency. And again, I will keep you guys in the loop on what's going on. I'm not going to bring this stuff up and then just leave you hanging because it's too personal or whatever. I'm always straight up with you guys, and that will continue. But thanks to everyone who showed up in chat. What'd you say?
Shane has no boundaries.
I really don't. Like, I really am an open book. Like, I try to live my life so that I can be an open book, and I'm not ashamed of anything that I do. So it's kind of worked out. Even at my age, I feel like I can do that. So anyway, thanks, everybody. Everyone on chat, you guys were great. Thanks for everybody who gave us Twitch Prime. If you're listening to this show on any of the podcast services and you want to support us, please head to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD without the E. You can pledge whatever you want. You can pledge $1 a month, $100 a month. Everything is up to you. If you do want to get all our content early, that's just $4 a month, and you'll get everything early. Pack Your Factor a week early, GameFace 4 or 5 days early. Generally everything at least 3 days early. That's just $4 a month. Or you can just give us $1 if you just want to help, whatever you want to do. We appreciate any help that you can give us. Again, that's patreon.com/sifted. If you don't have any money, you can help us with Twitch Prime like a lot of people do on our live stream. If you're watching on YouTube, the instructions to do that are down below. They're very easy and very quick, and we would really appreciate it. You can literally give us a free $2.50 that Amazon pays us. Come on. If anything, doesn't it feel good to make Amazon pay somebody? Instead of us paying Amazon. But anyway, thanks to everyone who's live on the stream. Thanks to all our patrons who support us at patreon.com/sifted. All our subscribers at sifted.net. We really appreciate you guys. We'll be back next Tuesday at twitch.tv/siftedgames at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Until then, have a great week. GameFace is up and out.